months of service free. That's right, the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage as Big Wireless, now with 2 months free. Proof the best things in life really do come in twos. Visit consumercellular.com or call 1-888-FREEDOM. Second and third month of monthly base service fee waived for new customers with the purchase of a phone and activation by July 31st, 2024. Taxes, fees, and third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Hot and humid with a mix of clouds and sunshine. Couple of thunderstorms here and there. 96 for the high. It might cool our temperatures a bit if you get under one, but boost the humidity. Tonight, most will see some rain, scattered rain and thunderstorms, some strong, some with very heavy rain. 72 Wednesday, partly sunny with scattered storms. Cooler Wednesday, 82. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
The Retirement Advisory Group is online at retirementkey.com. Now you can call them and you can, ask them to set up an appointment so that you can start talking about your retirement. 314-993-9494. 314-993-9494. That's a direct line. Call them. Say Annie said something about a free sit down and you'd like to schedule one. They'll be glad to help you. Thomas Helbig and Tammy and Bob Kershaw are experts when it comes to that transition. It's a very specific time of retirement planning. You've spent years and decades. You've been where I am right now, which is just like save. Just try to save. That's pretty much it. Just try to save and invest. When you get to the point where retirement is there, you're at that place, you need to make some smart moves. That's where the Retirement Advisory Group comes in. They help you make sure that you do protect your nest egg and make the smart moves so that when you go into retirement, you exhale and it's anxiety free. That sounds great. 314-993-9494 and tell them Annie sent you. You can go online as well at retirementkey.com.
Every day Joe Biden's in the White House, the crisis at our southern border gets worse. On Biden.
The National Weather Service in St. Louis has issued a tornado warning for Jefferson County until 12:45 p.m. At 12:01 p.m., a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located over Cedar Hill, moving southeast at 50 miles per hour. Expected hazards include tornado. This is a radar-indicated threat. The following impacts are expected. Flying debris will be dangerous to those caught without shelter. Mobile homes will be damaged or destroyed. Damage to roofs, windows, and vehicles will occur. Tree damage is likely. This dangerous storm will be near Hillsborough, Cedar Hill, and Cedar Hill Lakes around 12:05 p.m. Festus around 12:15 p.m. Crystal City and Olympian Village around 12:20 p.m. This also includes Sandy Creek Covered Bridge Historic Site in Gov. Dunklin's Grave Historic Site. This includes Interstate 55 in Missouri between exits 170 and 185. Take cover now. Move to a basement or an interior room on the lowest floor of a sturdy building. Avoid windows. If you are outdoors, in a mobile home, or in a vehicle, move to the closest substantial shelter and protect yourself from flying debris.
That is exactly what I needed to hear.
Thank God someone here knows what they're talking about.
That's us. That's right. Gotta love this American ride.
All right, you need to take the time and get the full picture.
Come on, turn the radio on. It's Saturday and I won't be long.
Don't get me wrong. I love the ladies. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom. It is Anchor Man, not Anchor Lady.
What do you want from me? I'm not America's sweetheart.
Goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
I'm not America's sweetheart.
This is the Annie Fry Show.
Welcome to the Annie Fry Show. Brad Young sitting in today for Annie, and it is great to be with you on a rainy day today. Ryan, good to see you, sir.
Yeah, good to be here.
I have to tell you, I almost didn't make it in today. I'm coming in from Chesterfield, and the rain was so torrential that there were two different accidents on 40. One was a 18-wheeler that had the highway closed over near Lindbergh and 40. And then a few exits later, like by Spady, there was another accident. Cars were hydroplaning. Dogs and cats were living together. I mean, it was total insanity. But listen, I persevered today to sit in for Annie.
You want me to go drive around and do traffic?
You could.
Throughout the show? It's going to stop at around 2 o'clock is all I know.
Or, we could do the old like this, like we're in the weather chopper.
Yeah.
That's always a good trick, right? But it's really raining. So if you're out there driving around today, please be careful. Someone else who failed to be careful was Senator Bob Menendez.
Yeah, Menendez has been found guilty. Now, this is tough. I'm repeating this from what I just heard the top of the news because the reports are literally not out yet. But Lisa Brady from Fox News reporting that he's been found guilty on all 16 charges.
Right.
I know his wife is a part of that too, so I don't know if the verdict has included her as well. But whether politicians go into the slammer or not, I don't know. If they do, he is.
Well, this is interesting. You might recall this is the guy who had gold bars sewn into his jacket, and when federal prosecutors showed up with the search warrant, there was gold, there was enormous amounts of cash, there were guns everywhere that weren't registered. But what I find interesting about this is that this is the second time Bob Menendez has been charged with corruption. The first time was in 2016.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And he was on the verge of being convicted in 2016 when the Supreme Court came out with a decision in terms of defining what constitutes an official act of a politician.
Okay.
And the Supreme Court ruled that if they weren't doing, in order to be convicted under the bribery statutes, they had to be doing an official act. And what Menendez was charged with back in 2015, and it went to trial in 2016, was that he was making deals with people in exchange for money. But in an unrelated case, the Supreme Court ruled that making deals isn't part of the official acts of congressmen, that their official acts are attending meetings, advising government officials, and voting. But arranging meetings are not an official act. So literally the entire corruption trial in 2016 collapsed literally like the day before closing arguments because he was being charged with corruption for arranging various meetings for large sums of money. And so since the Supreme Court held that arranging meetings does not constitute an official act of a congressman, then, you can be bribed all you want for putting two people together. And so literally that prosecution collapsed at the very last minute.
So he was not personally benefiting from this in 2016, or at least that they couldn't prove.
Oh, no, he was. He was being paid large amounts of money to put people together in meetings.
Okay.
So he was being paid to say, hey, can you connect me with so-and-so who's actually in the government because I want to make some money from the federal government. So he was being bribed by an outside individuals to schedule meetings with members of the government.
And so essentially now that's still legal to do that?
That's perfectly legal.
That's incredible. I'm running for Congress. Because I didn't know that until now.
Okay.
But I'm just announcing my candidacy because that sounds like a very lucrative position to have.
But the difference between the 2016 prosecution against Senator Bob Menendez, Democrat from New Jersey, and the prosecution now is that prosecutors had evidence that he was being bribed in order to cast a vote. And then it becomes an official act of a congressman or a senator to cast a vote.
That is incredible that he was that close to getting caught doing this stuff in 2016.
And he did it again.
And just was like, I did it. I'm fine. And he just kept going and did it more.
Right.
You'd think, and this usually isn't the way criminals work, but when you almost get caught, you consider like, well, that's my come to Jesus moment.
Right.
I think I'm going to reform my ways. No. In fact, it's not just politicians. That's people.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I'd say the majority of people, you almost get caught and they think, oh, well, now I'm immune. I'm just going to keep doing it.
Hey, I got away with it.
Yeah.
That was good. So, but this, and to me, this is one of my running commentaries every time there's a criminal trial or even a civil trial. And that is, if you look at this Menendez case, the jury verdict came down at 12:50 Eastern or 12:55 Eastern, like 15 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Juries always wait until after lunch to render verdicts so they get one additional free lunch from the court system.
Now we're talking logistics.
That's brilliant. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
98.7% of the time. And of course, you probably know that 72% of all statistics are made up on the spot.
Right.
But 98.2% of the time, juries will come back after lunch because they want just one more corned beef sandwich paid for by the court system.
Now, let me ask you a hard-hitting question.
Yeah.
Are these pretty good meals, or are they just sort of from the cafeteria?
No, they're just from the cafeteria or
See?
local restaurants.
What?
But you know what? When you're serving as a jury member and you're getting like $10 a day in parking, a free lunch sounds pretty good.
Yeah, but if you issued it earlier, you'd get the day off and get paid for the day.
I know, but you just wait a little bit longer, you get that free lunch, and you're still off for the day.
Well, I guess so.
So, it's...
You wasted your morning.
They're just sitting around there playing cards or something. If they reach a verdict at 10 a.m., they're like, hey, let's pick a number between 1 and 100 or anything to kill time until after lunch when they get that free lunch, and then they come back with a verdict. Happens every time.
See, if you weren't here, what would we be talking about? There's almost no news. I'm glad you brought this.
No news at all. But now the interesting thing is that how will this impact New Jersey? Because Menendez is running for re-election.
Isn't he as an independent?
He is running. He's on the ticket, but I don't remember if it's an independent or is a Democrat.
I think he lost the Democrat primary.
Okay.
So he's still on the ticket.
Right. But there's no constitutional prohibition for being running for Senate and being a convicted felon, just like there's no constitutional prohibition against a president, right? And in fact, there have been, I'm trying to think here, Trafficant was his name. He was a congressman from Ohio, James Trafficant. He got convicted of fraud. He was in jail and was still running for re-election while he was at the Gray Bar Motel. And he's running literally from jail, running his campaign from jail, and he did not get reelected. But my point is that this may not dissuade Senator Menendez from running for reelection.
It says he's going to be sentenced on October 29th. So that's like the week before the election.
The week before the election.
I got to ask you, since this is breaking news, which is why we're talking about at the top of the show here. And we don't have to talk about it right now, but at some point in the show, I want to know your legal expertise of what has happened with the Trump classified documents cases.
Yes, I am ready to break all of that down for you today.
Because that is another breaking news story that is a major, major story that really has been overshadowed by everything else.
Completely overshadowed. And, I mean, obviously, it's been overshadowed for good reason because, we had an attempted assassination on former President Trump, and that has overshadowed it. The RNC convention has overshadowed everything. But this is a blockbuster opinion from Judge Cannon down in Florida. Now, I will tell you, and I'm going to break this down later in the hour, but let me just give this little bit of a tease. And that is this. No one, including me, and I'm always happy to admit or to brag about when I call things correctly. I was saying 6 months ago I didn't think Biden would be on the ballot, and now there's a serious question about whether he will. I did not foresee this coming, and I will tell you why. Because this same argument that I will break down later in the show, this same argument that Trump's defense team made to disqualify Jack Smith as a special prosecutor was made in the Robert Mueller. It was made in every single investigation. Judges routinely reject this argument, which I've always believed was valid under the Constitution.
Apparently.
But judges just ignored it. Judge Cannon found it correctly that it was invalid. And I'm glad that she did so. It's not partisan. It's not because she's a Trump appointee, but we have lost, and this is part of the analysis I'll get into later in the show. We have lost in this country an understanding of what separation of powers means. We just think the federal government is this monolithic monster that controls and runs everything. But finally, whether it's at the Supreme Court, whether it's in judges, whether it's what we're going to see if, and I believe will happen when President Trump is reelected, we're going to see a dismantling of the administrative state, not in a negative way, but back to the way that the framers designed our Constitution, designed our three branches of government. And the executive branch has usurped so much power from Congress unconstitutionally that now we're just okay with it. It's like the proverbial frog being boiled, the apocryphal frog story. And as the water gets warmer, he just thinks he's in a sauna, until the bubbles start coming.
Yeah.
And that's where we've been. And I'm thrilled that we're rolling this back constitutionally to a point where we have three separate and distinct branches of government, because that's what allows the checks and the balances to occur. And when you have the executive branch being too powerful, as it's been for the last 60 years, at that point, our freedoms are eroded. And freedom is the whole purpose of the Constitution.
It's fantastic that we're talking about this, because this is an issue that has been, like you said, it's not as if it suddenly happens and everybody reacts to it. It's been going on for decades and decades.
Yes.
That Congress has been giving their power away, power that they're not supposed to give away, to administrative agencies.
Well, it's even worse than that, Ryan. It's not only has Congress been giving it away, but the federal agencies have been usurping it. Okay.
Yes.
They have been, for example, the best example, and we don't really have time in this segment to dive into these details, but again, this is a tease. We'll be getting into this as the show unfolds today. But the Title IX Biden administration proposals to include transgender women, which are men wearing skirts, okay, to allow them to get Title IX protection, to get scholarships on swimming teams. That is a total usurpation of power, because Title IX was designed to literally protect women, and yet the Biden administration's attempt to modify Title IX hurts women. It makes women have to compete against men who change their name to Betty, and they're still men. They still have testosterone. They still have all of the same muscle structure and bone structure and strength structure. And so it literally flips Title IX on its head. That, is, to me, is the quintessential example, Ryan, of how federal agencies usurp the power that is given to them by Congress and twist it in a way to fit a political agenda of the president in power.
And we've been too lax in letting this happen for too long. God bless it that it's become an issue. Because if it hadn't become a big issue like this and looked like an administration coming in, possibly, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in November, but it looks pretty good for Trump. If you have an administration that now includes J.D. Vance, by the way, that's part of our poll question today, is about J.D. Vance. These are guys who are very, very determined to dismantle that stuff.
Yes.
These are not like, I don't want to call them deep staters, but just they are not really establishment type guys. And that has become such a big issue that if it hadn't, or an administration comes in that either Republican or Democrat that just doesn't really care, this stuff would just get worse and worse, and we would have literally get to the point where you really don't have any representation in this government.
No.
It would become, as Tucker Carlson calls it, permanent Washington running everything, and the representatives you elect, they're just there for show. It would be like the monarchy in Britain, that they're not really doing anything, but you think they are.
Right. And so I've got so many, I've got like 7 hours of material today. So we might just tell Reardon to skip the show today, because I got plenty of stuff to go.
Okay.
But before we get to
you tell Reardon, by the way. I'm not going to tell him that.
I'll tell him.
Are you staying the whole time as well then also?
I will, for most of the show.
I'll be happy to tell him. But before we announce what's coming up in the next segment, Ryan, tell us more about the poll that you just referenced.
Yeah, YouTube live chat poll, if you want to vote today. It's a pretty simple one, and it's based on this other major news story that we haven't even mentioned yet. What do you think of J.D. Vance as the vice presidential pick? A few different options for you. You can say you love it. You can say I'm okay with it, or I would have preferred somebody else. Really genuinely interested to see how this poll turns out, because if we're talking to people who are majority Republicans are going to be voting for Trump, does this affect your vote? I mean, that's not the poll, but how much do you like this pick? And, what do you think of it in general? Leave a comment, and we'll, of course, be monitoring those throughout the show.
And how do people do that? Where do they need to go for that, Ryan?
Go to YouTube, you type in Annie Fry, and it'll come right up.
Very good. We're going to take a break here, and after the break, and it ties in with what, Ryan, what you and I were just talking about a moment ago, and that is, will Trump be reelected in November? And I wanted to reach out to Charles Lipson. He's one of my favorite columnists. He wrote a column that was just published, I believe, on Monday, talking about how the assassination attempt is going to lead to the reelection of President Donald Trump in November. So coming up after the break, we'll talk to columnist Charles Lipson right here on the Annie Fry Show. Brad Young sitting in this afternoon on 97.1 FM Talk.
Waiting on the world to change. We keep on waiting, waiting on the world to change. It's not that we
This is the Annie Fry Show. Follow Annie on Twitter at Annie Fry Show.
If you're thinking of selling your home, I'm sure there are two things you want: certainty and the most money, right? Hi, it's Mark Cox, and if you've been listening to me for some time, you know the only agent I trust is Gloria Liu with Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, St. Louis real estate expert. Here's why she should be your first and only call when looking for an agent. Gloria doesn't make empty promises. No, she provides written guarantees. Now, what does this mean for you? Certainty. Now, certainty isn't the only thing you want. You also want the most money. Gloria is able to get her home sellers more money than the average agent because she already has the buyers. This is why Gloria will guarantee to sell your home at your agreed upon price, or she'll buy it. To get your guaranteed price, call St. Louis real estate expert Gloria Liu at 314-325-6888. That's 314-325-6888. Or visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com. That's GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Conditions apply. Gloria and seller must agree on price and possession date.
Are you worried about the state of the economy? Concerned about market crashes and rising inflation wiping out your savings? At Noble Gold Investments, we understand your fears and have a solution. Call us today at 1-888-403-1050. Imagine safeguarding you and your family with a tangible asset that has stood the test of time: gold. With Noble Gold Investments, you can diversify your portfolio and protect your wealth from economic turmoil. Our team will guide you through the process, ensuring you make informed decisions that best suit your needs. Call Noble Gold Investments today at 1-888-403-1050. That's 1-888-403-1050. The future is uncertain. Take control now. Call 1-888-403-1050.
Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Experience the beauty of custom-crafted windows that enhance your home's aesthetics and energy efficiency. Look no further than Infinity from Marvin, proudly brought to you by Lakeside Renovation and Design. Why choose Infinity? These windows are not just strong, they're 8 times stronger than vinyl, providing unmatched security for your home. Plus, with Lakeside's expert installation, you're guaranteed precision and perfection. Visit our showroom or call Lakeside Renovation and Design today. Elevate your home with Infinity from Marvin, where strength meets style.
Sick of those annoying ads slowing you down online? Introducing i3 Broadband's 100% fiber optic network with advanced whole home Wi-Fi. With speeds up to 8 gigabits, buffering is so yesterday. Our rock-solid connection keeps you streaming, gaming, and browsing without a hitch, thanks to our ad blocking feature. No contracts, no hidden fees, just pure internet bliss. And we've got a no-risk 30-day money-back guarantee. Dial 877-976-0711 or swing by i3broadband.com/STL. We're local, reliable, and committed to St. Louis.
Liberal mega donors are always looking for new rhinos to do their bidding. And with Adam Schnelting, they found their new star. Adam Schnelting has already backed their radical plan to defund our police. And he skipped countless important conservative votes. Skipped a vote to protect kids from sexually explicit materials in school. And skipped a vote to protect churches from junk lawsuits. It's no wonder Adam Schnelting is bankrolled by Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden's top funders. Phil Cristofanelli is the only leader we can trust to protect our conservative priorities. When radicals tried to defund the police, Phil Cristofanelli passed record funding from Missouri's law enforcement. When Joe Biden left our southern border wide open, conservative Phil Cristofanelli banned sanctuary cities and voted to send Missouri National Guard troops to secure the border. Vote Phil Cristofanelli, the proven conservative, for state senate.
Gladius PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising, paid for by Gladius PAC, and is not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
You're listening to the Annie Fry Show live from the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation Studio. Get in your comfort zone with the free home safety package on a new HVAC system. That's an almost $800 value for free. For details and a free estimate, visit aircomfortservice.com.
Every evening this week, the Republican National Convention is here. From 8 to 10, we're bringing you the convention plus live coverage. The Republican National Convention, every evening this week on St. Louis's home for conservative talk.
Yes, the boys are back in town, especially on the Annie Fry Show today. Brad Young sitting in with you for the rest of the Annie Fry Show today. And joining us is literally my favorite national columnist in America. I've never said that about any other person other than Charles Lipson. Mr. Lipson, it is fantastic to talk to you again, sir.
Earth girls are easy, aren't they?
Earth girls are easy. Yeah, that's a great reference, by the way, to an amazingly bad movie.
Brad, I haven't really been able to focus since Bob Menendez was found guilty.
Well, let me ask you this, though, Charles. Do you have any jackets with gold bars sewn into the lining? Do you have any of those?
Well, what I wrote was that for comfort and familiarity, he will be placed behind gold bars.
Instead of gray bars. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. Well, why choose? He can have both. I mean, you just never expect a New Jersey politician to be found guilty.
What? There's something about bears in the woods there.
I believe so.
Well, it is a pleasure to talk to you again, my friend. And you wrote a column a couple of days ago, or actually just published, I believe, yesterday, perhaps. But it's a column that really expressed and encapsulates what I've been thinking and others have been thinking against the, following the assassination attempt on Saturday against former President Donald Trump. And that is, how does this impact the election in November? What are your initial thoughts on that?
Well, I thought along four lines. First of all, it unambiguously increases Trump's chances, both because it will encourage his supporters to come out and vote, and because there is no better picture in modern American history, maybe in all American history, than the picture of him raised with the American flag in the background. Granted, the New York Times doesn't run the American flag in the background, but the rest of us see it, and we know it, and that contrasts just strikingly with Joe Biden's weakness, cognitively, physically, and most of all, politically.
Hey, but let's dig down into that, Charles. And again, we're talking to syndicated columnist Charles Lipson, and that is imagery. When you look at the imagery of Trump, who has been literally shot, and then he stands face bloodied, fist raised, that is the epitome of strength. And how is that contrasted by what we see imagery-wise regarding President Biden?
I want to say two things about that. One is that the best cover, which I sent out to you, was a picture of The Economist magazine, a famous international magazine, which has a walker that's used by old people, and it has a presidential seal on it. It's just devastating. But I think symbols like those resonate most when they reinforce existing images of a person. So the most athletic president in modern history was Gerald Ford.
Yes.
But he tripped going up the stairs to Air Force One. And that captured the public thinking that he was kind of tripping in the presidency. Maybe they were wrong, but that it captured that. And I think Trump's picture captures that, and I think Biden's performance in the debate was not only dreadful, it told us two other things. One, this ain't getting better. These are things that ordinary people understand because they've dealt with it with friends, family members, grandparents, whatever. And the other thing is that they now understand the media was lying to them.
Yes.
Not just the White House, but the media. I blame you personally, Brad.
Oh, yeah, I'm the media in St. Louis. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that's you. That's you.
Well, but I want to go back to one of the themes that you mentioned, because you said a moment ago, Charles, and we're talking to syndicated columnist Charles Lipson, that it reinforced already existing ideas, because the main theme, particularly when you look at the debate, we followed up on the debate with this imagery of Biden being perhaps senile, unable to carry thoughts, unable to make an argument. And then you contrast that very quickly, just a few weeks later, with this imagery of Trump being shot and then standing up, fist raised in front of an American flag. That's imagery that we've never seen, I don't think, ever in the history of American politics.
That's right. The thing it most reminds me of, now that I'm thinking about it, is the Iwo Jima statue in Washington.
Sure.
With I hadn't thought about it until now, but with all the soldiers raising the flag on that embattled island. So, yeah, I think you're exactly right. And when images and attitudes are deeply embedded and really take hold over time, they're almost impossible to reverse. I just don't see, even if Biden's decline were not permanent, and I think it is, and will get worse, and I think it will, I think it would be almost impossible for him to reverse it. The people saw what they saw. Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?
Exactly. You also mentioned something else that I want to circle back to, and that is energizing the base, because we know politically there are two ways to increase your vote. Number one, increase the turnout of your base, and number two, increase the broadness of your appeal to people who would otherwise either not vote or would vote for your opponent, and now they're going to vote for you. So we have, again, the base, and we have new supporters. So when you look at that, both the results of the debate and the result of the assassination attempt, how do you see it affecting both energizing the base and impacting otherwise non-supporting voters?
Well, the base right now could pull the Egyptian pyramids on their back. I mean, they will crawl over broken glass to vote. So they're totally energized, and I think anybody who favors Trump, really favors him as opposed to just voting against Biden, will come out to vote. I think that, by contrast, I think that the Biden electorate is deeply demoralized. One way you can see that, and by the way, to specifically answer your question, I don't think we'll know about turnout issues, especially related to Democrats and independents, until after Labor Day. That's when the polling switches from registered voters to likely voters. And the reason they do that is that they just don't, voters themselves don't know right now whether they are likely to vote. I mean, many of us do, but not everybody. And so I think you'll see that then. But what you're already seeing is that the most informed Democrats are the ones in swing districts, and they are the ones who are coming out against Biden staying on the top of the ticket. They don't think that an alternative will win the election, but they think an alternative won't finish so far behind Trump that they will still have a chance as Democrats.
We're talking to syndicated columnist Charles Lipson. And Charles, you mentioned one other idea that I want to gravitate to in your article that came out, I believe, yesterday. And that is the Secret Service's failure here in the assassination attempt over the weekend. Those failures have been documented and discussed at length, even in otherwise the liberal media, which, again, liberal media I know is redundant and repetitive. But when you even yesterday on the Today Show, they were itemizing all of the failures of the Secret Service in terms of protecting the president, getting the former president off the stage and into a vehicle, securing the perimeter. Some of the gates were secured with zip ties that any pocket knife could cut through.
I didn't know that. That's news to me.
Yeah. Oh, I saw it yesterday. That two of the gates that come into the perimeter fence had gates on them. And two of them were secured not by locks or chains, but were secured by plastic zip ties that anyone could have, with a pocket knife, could get through in a millisecond. And that was the security, so-called security, of the perimeter fence that even the Secret Service said they had control of the perimeter fence and everything within the perimeter fence. But they also failed to monitor people on top of obvious shooting locations. So these have been documented extensively. But my question to you, Charles, is how does this play into the failures of the Secret Service? How does this play into the equation of how this will impact the election in November?
Well, I think it plays in several ways, all of which help Donald Trump. We've already talked about turnout. But I think that the first thing is when there is disruption, failure, especially failure of the administrative state, that hurts the party that is in power at the time. Secondly, the party of the administrative state, call it the deep state, call it whatever you want, we mean the same thing, these permanent bureaucrats who make decisions over our lives without laws being passed. That is what the Democratic Party has been pushing since Woodrow Wilson and certainly since Franklin Roosevelt. And so the failures, which are the failures of not just the Secret Service, but the failures over the last several years of the CDC, the FBI, started to tell people that the FBI is on the case now and that they'll pin this whole mess on Richard Jewell. I mean, there's just failure after failure. Fauci Fauci working with social media to suppress legitimate conversations about where the COVID virus came from and so forth. All of these tell us that you can't simply say that, yes, these bureaucrats are unelected, but they are so much better than you and I. They are such experts in their field that we should just turn things over to them. And that hurts Biden again because it doesn't look like Biden himself is making all the decisions.
Yes, I completely agree. We're talking to national syndicated columnist Charles Lipson. And Charles, last question I have for you is this. I've been predicting for 6 months that I did not think that Biden would be on the ballot in November. And then after the debate, we saw a lot of press about whether he would or would not be. And now I think the consensus is that he probably will be. But do you see any change in the ticket between now and November? And if so, what would bring about that change?
Well, I tend to agree with Yogi Berra. It's hard to predict, especially about the future. But
St. Louis,
St. Louis native.
Yeah, St. Louis native. Right here. He's a hometown guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He and Joe Garagiola, who reported all of his best lines. I just heard one, if you don't mind. I just heard one recently where one of the great baseball players who used to take him to a lot of games and was out on the field when they were doing one of those videos that was honoring all the great players who had died in the past year. And Yogi turned to, I think it was Ron Guidry, turned to him and said, I just hope I never see my name up there.
Oh, I've never heard that one.
I hadn't either. Well, I think, to answer your question, I think absent a health crisis for Biden, that is a striking health crisis, that he is determined to stay in. They have no horse's head to put in his bed. They have no carrots to give him that will get him out right now. And the longer this whole mess drags on, the more likely he is to stay. They needed to get him out a lot earlier. But the insider Democrats stuck with him, and the media covered it up, and now they're sleeping in a urine-soaked bed.
Ugh. And Charles, we've talked many times, and you know that I read every single article that you send out.
You have that well-informed look.
I know I do, especially on the radio. So, but if other folks want to be as knowledgeable as those who read your columns and actually read your columns on a weekly basis, how can they find you and how can they sign up to read your columns weekly?
Well, they're free, and just go to Charles Lipson, LIPSON.com, and you can fill out a form that just puts you on my list. I'll be happy to add you. And I love actually hearing from the people who are on the list who read it and come up with ideas. Some people are well informed. They're police officers, they're firemen, they're journalists, and they have, or they're just ordinary citizens like I am, and they have interesting thoughts to share. So I look forward to your listeners joining.
Very good. Charles Lipson, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend, and I hope to get to talk to you soon.
Thank you very much, Brad. It's great to talk with you as well.
My pleasure. After the break, when we come back from the break, I'm going to be breaking down the documents case decision where yesterday Judge Eileen Cannon dismissed the entire documents case in southern Florida against former President Trump. I will be breaking down for you how that happened, why it happened, and what are the ramifications of her taking that action. Brad Young, sitting in for Annie Fry this afternoon on 97.1 FM Talk.
I said, boys are back in town. Boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. Boys are back in town. Boys are back in town.
This is the Annie Fry Show. Interact with Annie on Facebook. The Annie Fry Show.
Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. With Ramp, you get full visibility into your company's spending and control who spends what with each vendor. Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts instantly to save your team valuable time. Ramp automates data entry and routine tasks with automated approvals, expense categorization and bill payments, time-consuming tasks, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. Get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/free. Ramp.com/free. RAMP.com/free.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
Biden's open border policies are crushing Missouri. Yet, the Jeff City Swamp is boosting a program subsidizing health care for illegals, the same program behind Planned Parenthood's discount abortion scheme. Thankfully, Iraq War veteran Andrew Bailey is on guard. Like Trump, he's a fighter. As your Attorney General, Andrew Bailey won't stop fighting illegal immigrants and Planned Parenthood. Call 314-340-6816 and thank Andrew Bailey. Stand For Us PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. StandForUs.com.
The weather report today is hot. So I hope all your everybody's air conditioning is cooling the best it can. Now, don't fret if it's 100 degrees outside and you have your thermostat set for 65 and it's not pulling it down to 65. That's not the air conditioner. That's just your house incapable. It's not insulated enough. It just can't handle that kind of heat being pulled into your house. But if you, at 100 degrees, it's not cooling it, below 80 for 2 days in a row, or if it's real humid and muggy, that is a sign that you're either having a problem, like a window or doors left open, or your air conditioning is failing on you. So if that happens to be you, call me, Bart Inman, one easy number, Missouri and Illinois. It is 314-293-2600. Or on the internet, BartInman.com. That is Bart with a B, Inman with an I.com. God bless.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
You know, a lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But if you could get both, why not? Especially when it comes to health care. And that is MediShare. You get both. Many families save $500 a month with MediShare, and that's huge. But it's also true that people wind up way more satisfied, too. The member satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. That's because MediShare works. It has for more than 30 years. It's a community of Christians who have shared more than $5 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth. They love the huge PPO network. So, yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price in 2 minutes. Here's the number. Just call 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE, 855-51-BIBLE.
More good news for Frederick Roofing, voted best roofing company by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
For a hole in your roof or a whole new roof, Frederick Roofing.
314-645-2000.
We are going to do Wiggins America at 1:45 so we can talk about this Trump documents case here with the expert himself, Brad Young, who is here to do just that, break these things down for us. YouTube live chat poll of the day. What do you think of J.D. Vance as the vice presidential pick? Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you want some more of it? Or do you prefer somebody else? That's not exactly the options we gave you today, but it's close. 12:47. This time check is sponsored by Jerry Cully Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
We're here to help you get registered to vote, whether you're in Missouri or Illinois. Democracy 2024 on 97.1 FM Talk. If you need help getting registered, go to 971talk.com/vote. This is the Annie Fry Show. Find the podcast, on-demand audio, and more at 971talk.com/Annie.
Welcome back to the Annie Fry Show. Brad Young in today for Annie. And I do want to give you just a quick weather update. There were some tornado sirens going off, and apparently there was a tornado warning that was issued for Jefferson County, and that has now been canceled. However, our entire area is under a flash flood warning. So if you're driving, if you're out and about today, be careful. Listen, when I was driving in, I was almost late, honestly, and there was lots of hydroplaning on the highway. Cars, I was only able to go about 40 miles an hour, which is about less than half of the speed I usually drive, unfortunately. But it was very treacherous, so be careful. In fact, there have been some closings. I believe 270 has been closed. Isn't that right, Ethan? At least the inside lanes on 270 up in North County.
Yeah, we got a couple of different updates here. Saw that 270, the inside lanes of 270 in both directions at North Florissant are closed as we speak, and they'll remain closed until Wednesday. 64 is closed in both directions in Illinois between mile markers 50 and 61, and exits 34 and 61 due to intense rain and flooding.
Very good. Thank you, sir. But Ryan, I wanted to discuss with you this segment about the appointments clause and the appropriations clause of the Constitution, because that's the basis of what Judge Cannon did yesterday.
Okay.
So, as you know, just to kind of give a recap here, Judge Cannon completely dismissed the documents case. It was pending in federal court in South Florida. Now, I will tell you, I've been saying for the entire year that this, to me, was the most legally culpable case of all the cases that Trump was charged with. In fact, I think on the evidence that we've seen, he's probably guilty of this charge. And here's the reason why I say that. Because he's not guilty of holding documents. Every president does that. President Biden even said he had documents in the trunk of his Corvette. Every single president takes documents inadvertently. What Trump was being charged with was not his inadvertently taking the documents, but after a subpoena was issued for him to produce those documents, according to reported evidence, he not only refused to turn over those documents pursuant to the subpoena, but instructed his employees to hide, destroy, or otherwise not comply with the subpoena. That's what he was charged with, not having the documents, but refusing to comply with the subpoena that ordered him to produce the documents.
So just based on the merits of the case is what you're saying. Yeah, they could probably get him on this one.
Correct.
Not taking into account the whole atmosphere that we're in, that why is this even happening in the first place? Just the merits of the case.
Right. And the same things that would apply to President Trump apply to me in my law practice. If I send out a subpoena to an individual, which I do all the time, and they refuse to comply, I can literally call the cops, order the sheriff to arrest them because they're violating laws by their failure to comply with a court-ordered subpoena. And so that's what Trump was charged with, not having the documents, but refusing to produce them pursuant to the subpoena.
Okay.
And I thought that he was probably going to be found guilty on that. Now, that's on the legality of the statute. What Judge Cannon did on Monday was that she ruled on two separate things. First of all, under the Appropriations Clause of Article 1 of the Constitution, the Appropriations Clause does not permit the Attorney General to appoint any individual to be an officer of the court, which is what a special counsel is. They can only do that with the approval of Congress, with the approval of the Senate in particular. It's under the Advice and Consent Clause of the Appointments Clause of Article 1, or Article 2, rather. So in that, it specifically states that that no appointment can be made without the advice and consent of the Senate. And there's no law that was ever passed, no Senate vote ever taken to approve Jack Smith as a special counsel.
But you were saying before, it had become kind of common practice to do it anyway.
Oh, exactly.
And so this is a little bit of a surprise.
Well, this gets into this entire thing that we talked about in the segment before we talked to Charles Lipson, that we've become so accustomed to the federal government just operating as a behemoth that we've lost this view of a separation of powers within our government. And the Constitution clearly lays it out. You don't get to do this unless the Senate approves. That's a check and a balance over the executive branch. Robert Mueller never was approved by the Senate. This same issue was raised. None of the judges ever approved or agreed with this very simple understanding of the Constitution.
So Judge Cannon, and this is in South Florida, is really the one that's acting constitutionally, whereas this has been brought up probably in D.C. is my guess before.
Correct.
And the D.C. courts have said, let's let bygones be bygones. Let's not
Exactly.
worry about the law.
Yeah, we don't need these little niceties like the Constitution.
Right.
They're not going to get in our way of prosecuting somebody, right? So that was the first thing. The second thing is she looked at the Appropriations Clause under Article 2 and looked at that, and it again requires that the government cannot spend money unless it's appropriated by Congress. That's a simple. We all know from watching what was those cartoons in the 70s and 80s where they would tell about our government. And like there's only a bill, it's only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. I don't know if you remember those on ABC. So very simple. You can only spend money that Congress appropriates. And Congress at no point has ever appropriated money to fund the Jack Smith investigation. $0. So number one, his appointment was unconstitutional. And number two, his payment of him and his legal team was unconstitutional because neither of those activities were approved by either Congress as a whole or the Senate in particular.
Wow. Well, then the question is, and I've seen MSNBC pundits saying, well, this isn't so bad because now Congress can just appoint a new one and fast track it. Is that true?
Well, it's true. If Congress appointed a special prosecutor tomorrow and voted on it, yes, it would be fast tracked. But the question is, will the Senate do that? And the answer is uncategorically no. There is no way. There's a greater chance that I have a full head of hair by tomorrow than the Senate approving that kind of a maneuver. It's never going to happen.
Okay.
So effectively, it's over, at least on the South Florida documents case. So the second question is, and this is a question I've been asked a lot yesterday, how does this opinion from Judge Cannon apply to, for example, any other cases there where Jack Smith is prosecuting President Trump, like, for example, in the January 6th case? That is not precedent of a decision. So the judge in D.C., Judge Chutkan, doesn't have to follow what Judge Cannon did.
Okay.
But I promise you with every fiber of my being that Jack Smith will appeal this decision, to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and even if it's overturned, this case is 2 years away from a trial.
Wow. So
2 years away.
Effectively, it's dead.
Effectively, it's dead. But you know what? What's not dead is the Annie Fry Show, because we will be back after this break with more. Brad Young sitting in, Ryan Wiggins here as always. More next on 97.1 FM Talk.
Point Pest Control, my favorite people. Are you looking to get rid of critters? Are you looking to get rid of bugs? I don't know if you heard the other day when Ryan was talking about his fight with the mouse. Don't do that. Just call Point Pest Control next time instead. 636-798-0023, 636-798-0023. Like I did, like Ryan has done. When you reach out to Point Pest Control, they're going to be able to take care of your problem quickly. Whether your problem is mice or spiders or termites, they do termites as well. And especially right now for those who are trying to combat mosquitoes. Point Pest Control can handle all of these problems. And this is really important, folks. Drop the old Annie name in there. Not old. Drop the cool Annie name in there. It's not cool either. Whatever. Just say Annie, because you're going to save 10% off of whatever deal you get. You're going to get an extra 10% off by mentioning my name, which is super awesome. Call 636-798-0023, 636-798-0023. Point with an E, pointpestcontrol.com.
If you're considering an annuity as part of your retirement plan, we need to talk. Hi, I'm Bob Stockdale, Senior Vice President Investments with the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel and host of On the Money, Saturday mornings at 11 on 97.1 FM Talk. Annuities can be a useful tool for some retirement investors, but not all annuities are created equal. Every week, we meet clients who own complex annuities that don't suit their needs and, in some cases, actively undermine their retirement plan. Before you purchase an annuity, get a second opinion from the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel. Requesting a consultation is free of charge. To request a free consultation, contact us at clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call us at 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com or 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas & Company Incorporated, member NYSE and SIPC.
Are you ready to smell better naked? I'm Dr. Shannon Klingman, the OBGYN creator of Lumi, the whole body deodorant that's clinically proven to control odor for 72 hours on pits, feet, privates, and beyond. It's pH optimized to safely and effectively control odor anywhere you have it, but wish you didn't. Plus, it's proven to work better than a shower with soap alone. Whether you shower twice a day or 3 times a week, Lumi works better. And who doesn't want zero body odor? With over 200,000 5-star reviews, I'm so sure you're going to love it, or you can return it for free.
For a limited time, new and returning customers can go to LUMEdeodorant.com and save up to 30% on products like the Lumi Starter Pack, Acidified Body Wash, or new Lumi Plus Sweat Control. Plus, get free shipping when you use the Black Friday in July code listed on site. That's LUMEdeodorant.com to save up to 30% today. LUMEdeodorant.com. See site for details. That's LUMEdeodorant.com.
KFTK FM Florissant. From the Under Law Injury Lawyers, GetJim.com studio.
That's GetJim.com.
97.1 FM Talk. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
News alert. A U.S. Senator convicted of corruption on Lisa Brady. It's guilty on all counts for Senator Bob Menendez, the New Jersey Democrat convicted of taking bribes from 2 businessmen who are also found guilty, and of acting as a foreign agent for the Egyptian government. Fox's Eric Shawn at federal court in New York City.
A jury here deciding that, yes, he did sell his office. He sold the power of the Senate that he had in Washington, D.C. for $480,000 in cash bribes, as well as 13 gold bars found in his wife's closet, a Mercedes-Benz, and other lavish and expensive gifts.
Attorneys for all 3 defendants argued the gifts were not bribes, but U.S. Attorney Damian Williams says this was politics for profit.
And now that a jury has convicted Bob Menendez, his years of selling his office to the highest bidder have finally come to an end.
This was the second corruption trial for Menendez after a hung jury in the first case, but the senator remains defiant, just telling reporters he'll be successful on appeal.
I have never violated my public oath. I have never been anything but a patriot of my country and for my country. I have never
ever been a foreign agent.
Menendez, though, now facing a flood of calls to resign, including from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. He could also be expelled from the Senate.
When the Senate comes back next week, there's probably going to be a push, if it's not obvious that he's going to resign, possibly to expel him. Under the Constitution, it takes a 2/3 vote to expel.
Fox's Chad Pergram on the Hill. Before this trial, Menendez had stepped down as chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The Democratic National Committee launching new campaign ads calling former President Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, a MAGA extremist, and accusing them of having a dangerous agenda. This includes a mobile billboard in the Milwaukee area where it's day 2 of the Republican National Convention. America is listening to Fox News.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single line 1, 5, and 10 gig data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon January 2024.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Hot and humid with a mix of clouds and sunshine. Couple of thunderstorms here and there. 96 for the high. It might cool our temperatures a bit if you get under one, but boost the humidity. Tonight, most will see some rain, scattered rain and thunderstorms, some strong, some with very heavy rain. 72 Wednesday, partly sunny with scattered storms. Cooler Wednesday, 82. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
When you're shopping for a home, you're going to need to shop for a mortgage. Might be a little bit of an afterthought, but then when you start to find, this is the house that we want or this is the neighborhood we want, you start to think more about that mortgage. And you need to make a good decision when you go to get your mortgage. It's a big loan, and it's probably going to last for a few decades, so you want to make the right choice. Stewart's American Mortgage, or my friend Stewie, better known as Stewie, he's got a bagel loan. Only place you can get a bagel loan is with Stewart's American Mortgage, and let me tell you why the bagel loan is such a smart move. When you go to acquire your mortgage, you pay no closing costs with the bagel loan. You do not inquire any of those fees. You do not have to pay any closing costs. He takes care of all of it for you. And if you want to know the dirty details about all of it, it's really pretty simple and it's really, really smart. And Stewie will explain all of it to you. 314-324-4440, 314-324-4440. Google the bagel loan to find out more. NMLS number 226715.
If you have a problem with the IRS, believe me, it's not going away on its own. The IRS never gives up. They have endless resources so they control the game. Well, your tax problems can end. I'm attorney Lance Drury with the Drury Law Firm, a local tax resolution firm with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. I've handled thousands of IRS cases over the last 15 years. So when you hire me, you won't be speaking long distance or sending money to some TV pitchman that's riddled with consumer complaints. Your first visit is completely free and confidential, and I'll tell you on the spot exactly how much it will cost. So call me, Lance Drury, at 314-260-6120. That's 314-260-6120. Or go to Lance, DRURYlaw.com. If you have IRS issues, you need a local attorney, you need me, Lance Drury.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Are you ready to shape the future? Missouri is crafting its master plan on aging, and we want to hear from you. Visit health.mo.gov/aging to share your thoughts, ideas, and concerns. We can create a vibrant, inclusive future for all generations.
Conservatives need real America First warriors to take the fight to the swamp. But Bob Onder attacked President Trump, proudly voted against him, and opposed Trump on China because Bob Onder is just another career politician we can't trust. Conservatives for American Excellence, Inc., paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. ConservativesForAmericanExcellence.com.
97.1 FM Talk. You're here because you clearly have a refined palate. St. Louis is home for conservative talk. This is 97.1 FM Talk.
That is exactly what I needed to hear.
Thank God someone here knows what they're talking about.
That's us. That's right. Gotta love this American ride.
All right, you need to take the time and get the full picture.
Don't get me wrong, I love the ladies. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom. It is Anchor Man, not Anchor Lady.
What do you want from me? I'm not America's sweetheart.
Goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
I'm not America's sweetheart.
This is the Annie Fry Show.
Welcome back to the Annie Fry Show. Brad Young sitting in this afternoon with you through the 3 o'clock hour. Glad you are with us today. Hope you're staying safe out there as you're driving around the St. Louis area. One of my favorite topics outside of legal topics is military topics. I follow military technology very closely. I follow military strategy. I've read the book Sun Tzu on Art of War multiple times. And so for me, it's a pleasure to talk to Jim Carafano with the Heritage Foundation. Hey, Jim, it's great to talk to you again, sir. Okay. Do we have Jim? Ethan's checking on that.
Are you there?
There you go. We had a little technical issue here, but it's great to talk to you, sir.
Oh, there we go.
Good. Hey, I wanted to talk to you. First of all, I want to talk about Ukraine for just a moment and Russia, because as of last week, Russia had lost 555,000 troops, whether that's by death or by injury that takes them out of the fight. They've lost 8,000 tanks, almost 16,000 armored vehicles. And the list goes on and on, including 361 aircraft, 300 helicopters, almost 3,000 cruise missiles. I mean, the losses are staggering here. So from your perspective, Jim Carafano, who is, of course, the defense expert at the Heritage Foundation, how long can Russia continue to manage these levels of losses in Ukraine?
Well, I've often said Putin has lost the war, but only Putin can end the war. I mean, the reality is Putin is never going to accomplish his goal of destroying a free and independent Ukraine. It's just never going to happen. This is going to end in a frozen conflict. When you have an open-ended strategy of attrition, that is the absence of a strategy. And the reality is you put the politics of all of our politics aside in the West. Nobody wants Russia as a neighbor. And so nobody in the end is going to abandon Ukraine. And the Ukrainians, you could think what you want about the country, but they're not leaving their country. I mean, you can say, well, geez, look at all the people that left. Yeah, but the war has been going on for 3 years, and there's still 20 million Ukrainians there, and they're fighting. So Putin has two choices. He can find an exit ramp, or he can just keep throwing good money after bad. But neither one of them is going to put him in a better place. Neither of them are going to get him in a better place than he is now.
Mm-hmm. We've seen earlier this year, there was talk of Russia, and in fact, I think it was verified, that Russia had actually taken over some additional land areas, particularly in the south and in the east in Ukraine. But then once they started receiving some additional American supplies, in particular missile systems and artillery systems, at that point then we saw some pullback. So are we basically just in a stalemate right now when it comes to the Russian-Ukrainian war?
Yeah, that's correct. None of the territory that's been exchanged on either side is strategic and is really delivers a long-range advantage to either side. So it's literally mindless attrition. And when you're in an attrition war and you're on the defensive and you're hunkered down, and the other guy has to throw people into the wall, the other guy takes more casualties. And so while the Ukrainians are on the strategic defensive, all the major threats really are on the Russian side. And so what are the Russians doing? Well, the Russians are doing the one thing where they can be effective, which is these kind of long-range strikes really against civilian infrastructure to try to weaken Ukrainian resolve. Hasn't worked. And the Ukrainians are increasing getting capability to strike Russian infrastructure, which includes the things that Russia uses to make money. This is never going to go to the plus side for the Russians. So, I've often said, and look, I'd love for the Ukrainians to have every inch of their territory back. One is nobody's going to underwrite that in the West. Nobody is going to underwrite the bill for them to conquer their whole country. And even if they would, they don't have the manpower to do that. So I think that this is going to look a lot like West Germany in 1945 or Korea in 1953 or Israel in 1968. And then people say, well, what does the peace look like? And the answer is really simple. If you look at all those conflicts, and actually you look at most conflicts in history, where the fighting ends up on the ground, that winds up being the peace deal. Most people think the peace deal is you negotiate something and then you implement it. Most peace deals really are just a recognition of the reality on the ground as it is.
Interesting. We're talking to Jim Carafano. You know Jim. He is the national security expert and defense policy expert at the Heritage Foundation. And Jim, one of the questions I wanted to ask you too, while we're still talking about Ukraine, is Ukraine is due to receive F-16s, I believe, donated from several European countries. Right. They're going to be receiving them literally any day. In fact, they may have them already. How will that change the progress of the conflict, if at all?
Well, it gives the Ukrainians an added dimension that's going to make life more difficult for the Russians. It is a game changer. Is it going to change no. Because F-16s are terrific aircrafts. They can do a lot of damage. They can defend airspace. They may be able to sneak them across occasionally, but they're flying an F-16 against a sophisticated air defense umbrella you can't do that very often. So is it going to help the Ukrainians? Yes. Is it going to end the war? No.
That sums it up, Jim. Thank you. But one of the other things that I find fascinating about watching what's happening right now on the ground in Ukraine is this evolution of defense technology. So historically, obviously, you know this, historically, the bow and arrow was king until the suit of armor was invented. And then once the suit of armor was invented, it was defeated, of course, by the unchambered rifles that could penetrate the armor. So there's always a give and take between offense and defense. What we've seen here in Ukraine is a revolution of drone technology where you've got a $1,000 drone with an explosive device that can take out a $15 million tank, which is an amazing economy of scale. But here's my question. I read just last week, I believe it was even a couple of weeks ago, that the French chief of staff, General Pierre Schill, came out and said that small drones will lose their combat advantage over the coming year or two, which they have an enormous advantage now because of the inexpensive nature of the drones, but they're going to lose their combat advantage as the West develops systems to literally fry drones. Do you see that happening? And what are you seeing from your unique perspective as to the technology that will defeat the drones?
Right. Well, I think there is true. I mean, they will develop counter technologies. The reality is we often see this is systems usually just don't become dinosaurs. We still have aircraft carriers, and we still have tanks and airplanes and big air defense systems. So the reality is we see new weapons introduced, but that often doesn't mean that the old weapons becomes obsolete. Often they wind up on the battlefield side by side. And you're right, as people introduce stuff to counter that stuff. So here's the really interesting dynamic, which most militaries, including the U.S., never think of. The reality is we always innovate in war because everything we bring to the fight turns out because war is, two different sides, and you can never predict exactly what's going to happen. And so you always wind up innovating in war. The thing is what we never do is we never plan to innovate in war. We always plan before the war to try to be foresighted and think what's going to happen, right, and do that. But we never recognize the reality of virtually every war in human history, that once the war starts, that's when you really wind up innovating. And we don't plan for that. We just kind of make that up as we go along. So what will happen is people learn a lot of lessons from what happens in Ukraine, and they'll apply those lessons. But then the next war is going to be different. So, how useful are they? Who knows? But war is a concept. The problem is, we tend to do what you just said. We tend to focus on the technology. It's not about the technology. It's about the people that are fighting the war and how desperate they are, how innovative they are, how creative they are. So we tend to do this all along. We go, oh, look at drones. Don't look at the drones. Look at the country that's operating it. So just for example, one of the reasons why we have such aggressive drone warfare is all these kids grow up flying drones. I mean, in the United States, we have drone competitions. They're sponsored by the U.S. Air Force. I mean, so literally you have people who can do combat operations who are just literally teenagers. So this is the reality of how wars go.
We're talking to Jim Carafano, national security and defense expert with the Heritage Foundation. And Jim, you said something here a moment ago that I want to use to transition. You said that we focus sometimes on the technology of today or the defense strategies of today, but in wartime there's innovation and there's change. Let's talk about China for just a moment. You've heard the saying that armies always are prepared to fight the last war, but not the next war. So we, at this point, as the Pentagon has been shifting and transitioning, which is enormously difficult, to being able to fight a near-peer battle against China, particularly in the South Pacific. How has from your perspective and your assessment, how has the Pentagon changed? Are they making the right changes? For example, even the Marine Corps changing their entire philosophy, getting rid of tanks, moving to island battle management strategies. How is the Pentagon doing in their transition from fighting against Afghanistan and Iraq to transitioning to a near-peer battle against China in the South Pacific?
Well, look, I mean, the challenge is the Asia-Pacific fight is largely a maritime fight. And we just don't have the numbers, the maritime numbers, to convincingly deter the Chinese. And you could say, well, we've got great ships. We have more combat experience than the Chinese. But even the best ship, the most competent and deadly ship in the world, can only be in one place at a time. So the single biggest, the single biggest challenge that we have is developing enough maritime force in the Pacific, ships and submarines. How do we just generate enough stuff? And then the second one is space. Within a few decades, whether a country wins a war on the ground will be dependent upon how dominant they are in space.
Wow. And that's why, did you support the establishment of the United States Space Force, giving your recognition that it's essential as a battle space that we control the upper atmosphere and above the upper atmosphere?
We're not moving fast enough. China wants to dominate space by 2049. We have to be able essentially to have the capacity to destroy anything the Chinese try to do to dominate space. We are 10 to 15 years behind.
Wow.
Where we need to be.
So do you see defensive capabilities in space as being preeminent, or do you see the ability, which I think is what the Pentagon's been focusing on, is the ability to replace satellites in space with, for example, a Starlink type system, or to be able to launch satellite systems more quickly than our adversaries could destroy them, or is it a combination of both of those strategies?
Well, the most stable, because what you really don't want to fight a war in space, right? Just like you don't want to fight World War III. The most stable deterrent structure is what's called an offense-defense mix, which means you have the capacity to protect if an enemy attacks you, so you can't have another Pearl Harbor, but you also have the potential to smack them in the face. This is why, when people talk about nuclear deterrence, what you should really be talking about is nuclear weapons and missile defense, right? So the capacity to both convince the enemy they can't take you out, but also have them worry that they can't sleep at night. So offense defense mix is always, if you're a strong country, that is always what you should strive to do. And one of the problems that we've had, if you look at almost 20 plus years of defense modernization, we wasted the Bush years by basically, without all that money went to fight in Afghanistan and Iraq, which produced almost nothing. Mm-hmm. Obama basically gutted the military. Trump came in, invested very well for 4 years. Biden came back in and obliterated and really underfunded the military. So if you think of every dollar we've spent really since George Bush, out of the 20 plus years, only 4 of them actually went to really investing in the military.
So where would you point us? Because I know right now, in terms of space assets, China is developing the satellites that can literally killer satellites that can go in on our satellites and destroy them either kinetically or otherwise. Russia, I think, has already been confirmed that Russia has satellites that can literally fire projectiles. So where would you invest assets right now in space defense?
So first of all, people often talk about a pivot to Asia, which is kind of stupid because there's nothing to pivot. 70% of our navies are already in the Indo-Pacific, so you can't pivot the Navy. 90% of our Army is permanently stationed in the United States because we don't really have a big enough Army to forward position in any part of the world. Doesn't matter where the Air Force is because they deploy globally and the Space Force is in space. So if I was going to invest, you have to invest in the maritime domain. You have to invest in ships. You have to continue to build nuclear weapons because you have to deter now not just Russia, but a China that's going to have an arsenal equal to Russia and the United States. And then in space, you have to do both, right? You have to have assured access to space, which means you have to have the capability to put stuff up, keep it up, and protect it or replace it very quickly. And you have to have the capability, if you have malicious actors attacking things in space, to take those assets out. Now, some of that's infrastructure, and some of that's assets in space. So it's everything to do to win in space. You don't necessarily fight in space. Some of that's on the ground. For example, one of the things we have to do, you have to defend the infrastructure on the ground because without that, the space assets are useless.
Very good. Jim Carafano, defense expert with the Heritage Foundation. Jim, if folks want to keep track of what you say and your analysis online, how can they best find you?
Well, all the Heritage stuff is on our website at heritage.org. But if you have an issue or an analyst, if you want to know Russia, and just go to a web thing and type in Russia and Heritage, or Carafano and Heritage, and all that stuff will come up.
Very good. Jim Carafano, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon on the Annie Fry Show, 97.1 FM Talk.
All right.
Great to talk to you, sir. Hey, when we come back from this break, we're going to talk to Sarah. We're going to talk to, I believe, Sarah Perry, also at the Heritage Foundation, because Missouri is one of 7 states that have filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration over a new rule that would force doctors against their will, against their religious preferences, against their medical decision preferences, but would force them to perform gender transition surgery. Missouri and 6 other states have filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration on this. We will break it down next with Sarah Perry on 97.1 FM Talk. Stick around.
You're listening to The Annie Fry Show. Follow Annie on Instagram at The Annie Fry Show.
Smart shoppers know to go to Ruler Foods, and there are, of course, people who haven't had the Ruler Foods experience yet. For whatever reason, you haven't found yourself in Ruler Foods yet. I get it. I understand it until we initially did that diaper drive years back with Princess Storm over on Hot 104.1. I didn't realize the asset that Ruler Foods could be. These prices cannot be beat, and they have extra sales and extra low prices on various goods based on whatever promotions they're running. But I hadn't gone into a Ruler Foods before that. And when I realized the great partnership that we could develop with Ruler Foods, and I was there and I was in the store, I'm like, oh my gosh, facepalm, why have I not been shopping here longer? Make this my learning experience, your learning experience, and give them the chance. You will be so glad you did. So you can also schedule deliveries as well. Find the one that's closest to you. Schedule a delivery if you like. It's all there online at rulerfoods.com.
A weak White House, an invasion of illegals, and the woke mob attacking our values. That's what Phil Cristofanelli is fighting for Missouri's future. He supported sending the National Guard to secure the southern border. He defunded sanctuary cities. And Phil Cristofanelli backs the blue to keep our neighborhoods safe from gangs, fentanyl, and human traffickers. He's been named one of Missouri's most conservative legislators year after year. Cristofanelli stands up to the radical left and weak-kneed Republicans. Pro-life, he helped pass one of the nation's strongest anti-abortion laws and defunded Planned Parenthood. Pro-Second Amendment, he stood up for our gun owners and constitutional rights. And Cristofanelli is keeping men out of girls' sports and locker rooms. Phil Cristofanelli, an unwavering conservative for state senate.
Paid for by friends of Phil Cristofanelli, Dan Raker's treasurer.
Considering new windows, I want you to talk to my friends at Window World. Mark Cox here. They have got a great deal going for you right now. Up to 36 months financing, interest-free, with approved credit. They've never done this before at Window World, so take advantage of this. Call them today at 314-993-1800. Again, 314-993-1800. You hear me talk about Window World. I'm a satisfied customer. I've got their windows in my house. I've been to their offices and I've stood on these windows. I've seen how well built they are. They go in and they are meant to last. You wouldn't give a lifetime warranty on a product if you didn't think it was going to last for a long time, and they stand behind that warranty. In over 20 years of business, they have helped more than 72,000 customers in St. Louis improve the look and the thermal efficiency of their home. Call them today, get your free estimate, and ask about that 36-month financing, 314-993-1800. or windowworld.com.
Home values are sky high, and you have a ton of equity. Your financial advisor thinks the market is peaked. So if you're thinking about selling, it's time. Except for two things. High interest rates will burn you on a new home loan, and you're not ready to move. Savvy financial advisors suggest Truehold's new Sell and Stay program. It's ingenious because they buy your home now while its value is high, but you can stay in your home as long as you want with an easy, affordable lease. Smart, right? Truehold will make you a solid cash offer, not a lowball offer like the others. It's based on your home's current value. The cash is yours to travel, pay off bills, or secure your retirement. And again, you can stay in your home with a comfortable lease. Truehold covers property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. See how much Truehold will pay for your home today. Call 1-855-300-9993 or visit Truehold.com. The smarter, faster way to cash out your home's value without moving. That's Truehold.com.
You're listening to the Annie Fry Show live from the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation Studio. Air Comfort Service is hiring licensed journeymen. Don't have a journeyman license? Air Comfort Service will help you get it. Get guaranteed hours year-round and more. Apply online at aircomfortservice.com.
St. Louis's home for conservative talk.
The Mark Reardon Show.
Tuesday afternoon, the ticket is sent. Trump Vance 2024 will have the very latest from the RNC convention in Milwaukee.
Weekdays from 3 to 6 on 97.1 FM Talk. This is the Annie Fry Show. The Annie Fry Show is streaming online. Watch us live on YouTube and subscribe.
Welcome back to the Annie Fry Show. Brad Young sitting in today for the vacationing Annie Fry. Thanks for being with us. And I want to join with our guest here. It's someone I've interviewed many times, Sarah Parshall Perry. She is the Senior Legal Fellow for the Edwin Meese Center at the Heritage Foundation. Sarah, it's great to talk to you again.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I wanted to reach out to you because right here in Missouri, our Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, has joined with 6 other states to file a lawsuit against the Biden administration regarding this rule over forcing doctors to perform gender procedures. Tell us about this rule change.
Well, that actually comes from Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972. So it sounds like a healthcare challenge, but here's why. At bottom, it's actually an education challenge. Because when the Affordable Care Act was written in 2010, they incorporated the definition of sex discrimination from Title IX. And here's where it gets interesting. Because the Biden administration has changed the definition of sex in Title IX, which guarantees educational sex equality for males and females to include gender identity and expression, that also applies in a healthcare setting under the Affordable Care Act. Now, that means that any hospital, any physician, any medical assistant that accepts federal funding through Medicaid or Medicare, and that's most hospitals in the country, even religious hospitals, that accepts those funding, they now have to perform what the Biden administration has argued is gender-affirming care. That is cross-sex hormones, that is puberty blockers, and that is gender-related surgery. And if they don't, they will have their federal funding stripped. It is truly an unconscionable interpretation of longstanding federal law.
Well, Sarah, so this would happen if this law or this policy change, rather, is not successfully challenged in court. And I want to get into the legalities in just a moment on that. But it's just assuming for the moment without a challenge, this would mean that essentially, despite a doctor's personal beliefs or religious convictions or political values, he or she would be forced to do this, or they could be either denied funding or sued by the Biden administration.
You've got that 100% right.
Well, here's the legality. Well, before we get into the legality on this, my daughter, my oldest daughter, she got a 4-year rowing scholarship because she was an excellent rower. We got her college paid for, which was great because I have other daughters that, I had to write checks for. But the point of Title IX, we used to say at our house, God bless Title IX, but at the crux of what the Biden administration is doing in their attempts to change Title IX to apply literally to men who identify as women, doesn't that completely flip the entire purpose of Title IX, which was to protect women's athletics, women's education, and give women equal access to these programs that otherwise would be dominated by men?
That's exactly it. In fact, we didn't get much from the post-sexual revolution. We didn't get many good things from them, but here's what we did get. We got Title IX, which absolutely guaranteed women's equality. Now, women at the time couldn't participate in educational sports. They couldn't go to graduate school. They weren't allowed into many colleges and universities. But Title IX leveled the playing field and allowed women educational success, leading them to different career successes. And it turns by expanding this definition of biological sex, which I don't think anyone can argue with a straight face in 1972, meant gender identity. By using that interpretation, the Biden administration has asked everyone to essentially close their eyes to what everyone can see, and that's to essentially take what was guaranteed for women's equality and equal level playing field for men and women in education, and it turns it right on its head.
Well, here's where you're right. And to me, it was outrageous that the entire purpose of Title IX to protect women is now being flipped in a jujitsu-like fashion to protect men who identify as women. So then we have this absurd situation like we had with Leah Thomas and Riley Gaines, where you're literally promoting men to compete and defeat women, which goes exactly against the purpose of Title IX.
100%. And the Biden administration and the Obama administration knew what they were doing in 2010. Because remember, it was Obama, Biden as a ticket. And when they were elected, that law was written specifically to target Title IX as using that definition. And here's why. Because if Biden was successful getting into office and could defeat President Trump in a second term, they had an opportunity to give a 2-for-1 shot. They got education and they got health care, and they got both infused with gender orthodoxy in a 2-for-1 opportunity at the same time with a rewrite for only one law, and that was Title IX. That's why 26 states in 12 federal lawsuits have already sued, and the Title IX rule is already enjoined in 16 of them. In one of the federal courts, there is actually consideration as to whether or not a nationwide injunction is more appropriate. We know the Supreme Court isn't a real fan of nationwide relief. They like relief limited to the specific parties. But in this situation, the judge has taken under consideration the extraordinary application of this rule to every school that receives federal funding in the country, and has ultimately, in the end, requested both parties make their case.
We're talking to Sarah Parshall Perry. She's the senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. And Sarah, in my role as the legal analyst for 97.1 FM Talk, I've been talking enormously about the recent Supreme Court decision in Loper Bright Enterprises, where the Supreme Court overturned what's called the Chevron deference. Now, as you know, the Chevron deference, going back to, I believe, 1984, was a Supreme Court rule that said that the government or the courts should defer to administrative agencies on how to interpret ambiguous language. Now, under the recent Supreme Court decision in Loper Bright, now that deference has been eliminated. So with that as a backdrop, do you see this recent overturning of the Chevron deference having a direct impact both on this gender-affirming care rule that the Biden administration is promulgating, as well as changes to Title IX itself?
Absolutely. In fact, here's why. In a case dating back to 1803, the Supreme Court said it is the exclusive role of the judiciary to say what the law is. And when it says what the law is, it does not give Congress the opportunity to do anything other than make clear its intentions at the time and then prevent the executive agency, what we call now sort of the unofficial fourth branch, the administrative state, from suddenly using whatever they feel like they want to infuse into federal law to push through their agenda. They've used Chevron doctrine, which was a judicially created doctrine, and that was in Chevron versus Department of Natural Resources. It's been around for about 30 years. For many years, we've had sort of activist politicians and administrative bureaucrats shove through whatever reading they wanted, and that's exactly what they did with sex. The Biden administration argued that sex was ambiguous, which, once again, I don't think anyone can argue. But now that Chevron is dead, they're going to have to face real consequences. What did the law mean when it was enacted? We cannot infuse our own political agenda. We have to take the plain text and the congressional history as we have them and nothing else.
And that, to me, is the key, Sarah, because I know a lot of times when I'm talking about legal issues on the radio, folks call in, they're euphemistically, their eyes are rolling back in their heads. But the importance of this overturning of the Chevron deference is that all of these insane policy decisions by the Biden administration, by the Obama administration, and others, these now have to face real court scrutiny based upon what the statute says, not just what the agencies want the statute to say.
That's 100% accurate. And I think it's going to do good things for dismantling the administrative state. I think this particular presidential administration has been sort of really wants to push through political agendas by using federal rulemaking. And remember, that's happened multiple times. And yet, multiple times, the Supreme Court has struck them down. They had the OSHA vaccine mandate during COVID, struck down by SCOTUS. They had the CDC eviction moratorium during COVID, struck down by SCOTUS. They had the West Virginia versus EPA case come down saying, no, you can't use the Clean Air Act to cap emissions and force all these American businesses to institute tens of millions of dollars in changes to how they do business. So that was struck down as well. They keep getting the hits and they keep getting up and trying to do it again. I think the death of Chevron was for them, I think, really the death now of, in the end, the administrative state.
Yeah, that to me is the stake through the heart, because up to this point, when you talked about the moratorium, the eviction moratorium or the vaccine requirement and so forth, all of those required the court to go to the major questions doctrine to overturn those. But now that the Chevron deference is dead, This, I mean, we could talk for an hour on this, but I just want to end with this idea, Sarah. Can't this eventually, by the reduction in all of the crazy administrative rulemaking that's been going on for the last 30 or 40 years, this could actually result in a tax break for Americans, because we're not going to be funding all of these administrative ventures that have no basis in what Congress actually tells the agencies what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going to be a cost saving. I think it's going to be a government shrinking. That's exactly what we want it to do. Remember, the founding fathers anticipated the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative bodies would all be of equal power, and the only branch ever to be empowered with determining what the law is would be the judiciary, and making the law would be the legislative, and enacting the law, enforcing the law would be the executive. And when those rules are complicated, Americans bear a cost directly. They bear a cost in the cost of education, the cost of gasoline, the cost of all of their daily necessities, and specifically so in expansive political progressive ideologies, which you've seen with Title IX and through HHS. But this is hopefully going to pin back the ears of the administrative state. But the next administration's got a lot of work to do.
Very good. Sarah Parshall Perry, Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Listen, I read your articles constantly, and if folks want to glean your wisdom and legal insight, how can they find you online?
They can follow me on Twitter at Sarah P. Perry, or they can find my writings at heritage.org.
Very good. Sarah Parshall Perry, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon on 97.1 FM Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, we'll be back right after this. We've got Wiggins America. We were supposed to do it last hour. We got it bumped because of the issues of the day. But coming up next, Wiggins America right here on 97.1 FM Talk.
This is The Annie Fry Show. Interact with Annie on Facebook. The Annie Fry Show.
Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. With Ramp, you get full visibility into your company's spending and control who spends what with each vendor. Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts instantly to save your team valuable time. Ramp automates data entry and routine tasks with automated approvals, expense categorization and bill payments, time-consuming tasks. Which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. Get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/free. Ramp.com/free. RAMP.com/free.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members of FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
More good news for Frederick Roofing, voted best roofing company by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
For a hole in your roof or a whole new roof, Frederick Roofing.
314-645-2000.
Biden's open border policies are crushing Missouri. Yet, the Jeff City Swamp is boosting a program subsidizing health care for illegals, the same program behind Planned Parenthood's discount abortion scheme. Thankfully, Iraq War veteran Andrew Bailey is on guard. Like Trump, he's a fighter. As your Attorney General, Andrew Bailey won't stop fighting illegal immigrants and Planned Parenthood. Call 314-340-6816 and thank Andrew Bailey. Stand For Us PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. StandForUs.com.
After this hypnosis, I want to eat good food.
Since August, I can honestly say I have not had one potato chip.
It was life-changing for me.
And I don't think about desserts like I used to.
Bridget, how much have you lost now?
I lost a total of 83 pounds.
Holy cow.
It's easy, it's fun, very relaxing, and very successful.
And I would just say go for it.
This is Lisa Stofan. Heard the Mark Patrick weight loss hypnosis hype?
Well, I attended because my father stopped smoking. I lost 70 pounds and my friend lost 20 pounds in the first 2 months.
Join Mark Patrick seminars and lose weight or stop smoking guaranteed. Early bird special only $49.99. Hypnosis designed to destroy unwanted cravings, late day eating binges, boredom eating, stress eating. That's right. Seminars Tuesday, August 13th at the Holiday Inn Express and Suites, St. Louis Airport in St. Louis, and Wednesday, August 14th at the 4 Points by Sheraton, St. Louis, Fairview Heights in Fairview Heights. Weight loss seminar 5:30 p.m. Stop smoking seminar 8 p.m. Sign up at markpatrickseminars.com. That's markpatrickseminars.com.
Well, there's a very good chance as you've driven down your street, you have admired houses in your neighborhood that have been covered in Rhino Shield, and you don't even know it. Except if you pay close attention, you'll notice that they're not being repainted every couple of years. What I mean is same bright, vivid colors that you would choose with regular paint, except that Rhino Shield lasts. And you're going to get a 25-year warranty with it. I've got it on my house, and I mean it. It looks like it did the day they put it on. It lasts and lasts. It's lab tested to last that long against chipping or peeling or cracking. And they put this on businesses as well. Condo units from Springfield, Illinois, all the way down to the Lake of the Ozarks. You can find it. And my friend Darren will be happy to come over and give you a free evaluation of your home. All you have to do is call him. Tell him you heard Mark Cox talking about it. 877-25-RHINO or online at 877-25rhino.com.
We're going to talk about Morning Joe here next on Wiggins America. Well, on the Annie Fry Show, Wiggins America, on the Annie Fry Show. The YouTube live chat poll, what do you think of J.D. Vance as the vice presidential pick? Do you like it? Do you love it? Or do you prefer someone else? I'm not going to finish the quote. 147, this time check is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
Every evening this week, the Republican National Convention is here. From 8 to 10, we're bringing you the convention plus live coverage. The Republican National Convention, every evening this week on St. Louis's home for conservative talk.
If you change your mind, take a chance. I'm the first in line. Honey, I'm still free. Take a chance on me. If you need me, let me know. Gonna be around. If you got no place to go when you're free.
The Annie Fry Show is streaming online. Watch us live on YouTube and subscribe.
Welcome back to the Annie Fry Show. Brad Young in with you today. And in case you thought we forgot it, in case you were missing it, in case you thought that I can't live another 5 minutes unless I have Wiggins America, here we are.
Wiggins! Oh, Wiggins! So you probably heard the news story that Morning Joe on MSNBC was bumped yesterday.
Yes, I heard about this.
And we were all like, why? Do they not trust them? Well, Morning Joe is back this morning.
Okay.
So there was just one day that they were not there in favor of ongoing breaking news coverage is what they said. But then Joe Scarborough addressed it on the show this morning.
Willie, I just wanted to briefly talk to our friends and viewers that watch us every day and talk about what happened yesterday. We were told in no uncertain terms on Sunday evening that there was going to be one news feed across all NBC News channels yesterday. The Today Show would be Lester Holt, other people that you worked with on Sunday, and that was going to be one news feed across all NBC News channels, that we were going to stay as a network in breaking news mode throughout all day yesterday. That did not happen.
So they told Morning Joe and Mika Brzezinski and the whole team there.
Yeah, the daughter of Zbigniew Brzezinski.
Thank you for saying that.
That's her dad.
Yeah, of course it is.
Duh. He was a national security expert in the Carter administration.
You act like I didn't know that.
Zbigniew Brzezinski.
Okay. Yeah. We all knew that.
Of course.
So they bumped the show. They tell them, well, it's because we're doing this everywhere. We're bumping everybody's shows Monday morning to bring you breaking news coverage. Then, as Joe says there, they didn't. they didn't do that anywhere else.
Except
breaking news coverage could be covered by Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. Yeah. So I'm not sure why they would have if they trusted them, but apparently they don't. And it's not just him. Here's what's crazy. So I'll jump to this clip here. Willie Geist is another one of the anchors. Now, Willie Geist is on, I think, the Today Show on the weekends.
He is, and he's a frequent contributor to the Today Show during the week.
Yes. He's also on Morning Joe frequently.
He is.
So Willie was on Sunday morning and did not get bumped in the immediate aftermath of the assassination attempt. But then Monday morning, because he was associated with Morning Joe, they all got bumped.
Immediate aftermath, talking to eyewitnesses, talking to officials about what happened. Obviously suited up and ready to go for yesterday morning on a big morning, and we're told that something else was going to be broadcast. So we are here today going through a lot, catching up a little bit, but we want to be here for our audience, and we know you trust us, and we have ultimate respect for you guys. So we are here today. I wish we'd been here yesterday.
Now, Mika had a theory as to why they got bumped.
And I think the reason why is this show began and continues 17 years later on being the place where you can go to have the hard conversations.
That's because they just have hard conversations there.
Well, but don't read anything into this, but apparently not hard enough because it was, again, don't go where you're going.
Okay.
But apparently not hard enough because had it been good enough, they wouldn't have bumped it when they didn't bump anything else.
Well, the speculation is that these guys are so, I hate to use the word unhinged, but
they
untrustworthy
Yes.
with news like this, that they were worried that coming back on Monday morning, and this is speculation, although literally we have a lot of facts to support this possible speculation.
We do.
That they were so worried that they were going to say something outlandish about the assassination attempt.
Yes.
That they said, we cannot trust these guys to put them on the air. Now, that's what's crazy. That's why I played the Willie Geist clip, because he was on the air Sunday morning closer to the event.
And wasn't bumped.
And was not bumped. But his association with Morning Joe dictated that, yeah, you know what? We are going to bump all of your coverage. And what's crazy is that they're addressing here, they were told one thing and then a different thing happened. And they were told, we've all been in this situation, hey, look, there's layoffs. Everybody's getting laid off, including you. And then you find out, it actually was just that one guy. Like, whatever. This is that situation. The problem now that I'd like to just see what you think as an observer of media is now what happens. Because Joe and Mika have now raised the stakes. They've now gone on the air and said, look, we were lied to. They didn't say that verbatim, but that's basically what they said. We were lied to. We were told one thing. That did not happen. We will not let this happen again. To me, this is the beginning of, this show, by the end, like 12 months from now, I don't know that we see this show.
Exactly. Well, first and foremost, I think you need to understand that MSNBC is like the Witness Protection Program, because that's where people go when you don't want anyone to find you, is on MSNBC, first of all. I mean, their ratings are somewhere south of the Chia Pet channel, okay? That's where their ratings are. Secondly, they are unhinged, and this is what I find interesting about their unhinged status. And I think it was a good call by NBC to do that, because they would have been talking conspiracy theories about how, that the shooter was really working for Trump team in order to bolster his, some kind of crazy conspiracy, left-wing nutcase conspiracy theories. But here's what I think is more interesting, is that Joe Scarborough was in Congress. He was a Republican in Congress.
Yep.
He wasn't a right-wing extremist. He wasn't a rhino. He was kind of in between. But as soon as he got on the air and he started talking and being a part of that, and I'm using air quotes, the media, once he got into that, he started morphing and going further and further to the left. I mean, just like, who was the, her name's on the tip of my tongue, but she was the head of John McCain's campaign, She went to work for MSNBC, and now she's to the left of Bernie Sanders.
Oh, no,
Okay?
I don't know.
So I'll Google that in a minute. I'm sure someone's going to be on the text line texting that in. But my point being is that we have this situation in our country where when people become celebrities and they want to go to the right parties, they want to hang with J-Lo, they want to hang with Brad Pitt, they want to go out and hang out with these media celebrities and Hollywood celebrities and get invited to all the cool parties. When they do that, they have to move to the left to get invited to those parties. And we see it time after time after time. And to me, Joe Scarborough is just the latest example of what happens when people are not morally grounded, intellectually grounded, and ideologically grounded.
We just saw that party take place, a party for the party, with George Clooney about 3 or 4 weeks ago now. He had a massive fundraiser. Anybody who was there, including Jack Black, who just canceled their tour because Kyle Gass said something about assassinating Trump would be okay, something like that. All these people were all at the same party. Some of them spoke on the stage. And so you're exactly right, Brad. That is the group. That's the in crowd. And a lot of these people will do anything to be a part of it.
I think it's Michelle Wallace. I didn't have a chance to look at it, but it's Michelle Wallace. But now we're seeing that with John McCain, and that's why you need to listen to people like Annie Fry who are ideologically grounded as you are as a listener. Hey, we're going to take a break. We'll be back next hour. We're going to talk about some topics raised on the text line here on the Annie Fry Show, 97.1 FM Talk.
I love Jen Teskey, and I love Remax Alliance. Jen and I have become fast friends. She's wonderful, and she's got a team that surrounds her that is really, really learned well from her because she's an expert. She understands the market. She knows that if you are moving in Illinois, buying or selling, that you need a certain kind of care. You need someone who understands the market, and her entire team and staff has really grown to understand this concept. If you want to reach out to Jen Teskey with Remax Alliance, consider calling 618-541-1010. 618-541-1010, a direct line to Jen Teskey Homes. You can also check them out online at jenteskeyhomes.com. You can see some of the listings they currently have. If you're in the market to buy a home, but if you're thinking about selling, you might have heard there's not a lot of inventory out there. Now is a great time to reach out to Remax Alliance's Jen Teskey and have that first conversation. No big commitment, but a great place to start. 618-541-1010, online at jenteskeyhomes.com.
I was having a lot of sinus infections. My sinuses were clogged, pressure, headaches.
Linda suffered for years with chronic sinus infections.
You don't feel like doing anything. When you feel like your head is completely clogged, all you want to do is just lay down and sleep. And the pressure, it's just not fun. Always walking around with a headache.
Now, her issues are gone. How? A minimally invasive procedure done in the office of St. Louis Sinus Centers called balloon sinuplasty.
I really did not know what it was like to feel like you're really breathing and not being so clogged up. I would do it again in a heartbeat, and I would definitely recommend it for someone else.
Do you suffer with chronic sinus infections, facial pain, pressure, congestion? Find out if balloon sinuplasty is the solution for you. Set an appointment today with St. Louis Sinus Centers. Call 314-332-2885. 314-332-2885. That's 314-332-2885.
Outdoor Living Redefined, brought to you by Lakeside Renovation and Design, your trusted partner in crafting stunning decks, inviting screened rooms, and elegant porch overhangs. Imagine enjoying a crisp morning coffee on your beautifully designed deck, or hosting gatherings in a spacious screened room. Lakeside turns your vision into reality. Our skilled craftsmen use top-notch materials to create spaces that stand up to the elements and stand out in style. Elevate your lifestyle with Lakeside's outdoor living expertise. Visit our showroom or call Lakeside Renovation and Design today.
Mark Cox here. If you're nearing retirement or already retired, call my friends Thomas Helbig and Bob Kershaw with the Retirement Advisory Group. They'll show you how to link to the market without the risk. They're the official financial advisors of my show. Go online to retirementkey.com.
If you owe the IRS, you have a legal
legal issue, and you need the Lance Drury Law Firm. We'll protect your rights. Log on at lancedrurylaw.com or call us toll-free at 888-367-6512.
KFTK FM Florissant. From the Under Law Injury Lawyers, GetJim.com studio.
That's GetJim.com.
97.1 FM Talk. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
Senator facing many calls to resign. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez found guilty on all counts in a corruption case, including taking bribes and acting as a foreign agent for the Egyptian government. He still denies it all, telling reporters after the verdict.
Obviously, I'm deeply, deeply disappointed by the jury's decision. I have every faith that the law and the facts did not sustain that decision and that we will be successful upon appeal.
Menendez denies ever violating his oath of office, but U.S. Attorney Damian Williams says he sold his office to the highest bidder.
This case has always been about shocking levels of corruption. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes in the form of cash, gold bars, a Mercedes-Benz. This wasn't politics as usual. This was politics for profit.
2 New Jersey businessmen also convicted in the case also plan to appeal. For Menendez, it was the second corruption trial after a previous case ended with a hung jury. Some fellow Democrats had already urged him to resign. Now he's facing a cascade of calls, including from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Bipartisan demands for answers continue after the attempted assassination at a Trump rally in Pennsylvania.
I've talked to a number of members today on both sides of the aisle and also some sources that they thought they were getting pretty clear answers, at least to what they knew up to this point from DHS and certainly the Secret Service. One senior source told me that kind of clammed up. They're supposed to have briefings today for the Homeland Security Committee and also for the Oversight Committee. These will be virtual briefings because the House and Senate are not in session right now.
Fox's Chad Pergram on the Hill. Separately, sources just confirming to Fox News that Homeland Security had received intelligence in recent weeks about a possible Iranian plot to assassinate the former president, not connected at this point to the shooter in Pennsylvania. That intelligence, though, had led to an increase in Secret Service protection. America is listening to Fox News.
The best things in life, they come in twos. 2 scoops of ice cream, 2 tacos. And now for a limited time, get our best deal of the year. Buy any phone when you switch to Consumer Cellular and get 2 months of service free. That's right, the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage as Big Wireless, now with 2 months free. Proof the best things in life really do come in twos. Visit consumercellular.com or call 1-888-FREEDOM. Second and third month of monthly base service fee waived for new customers with the purchase of a phone and activation by July 31st, 2024. Taxes, fees, and third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
The torrential thunderstorm rains are easing a little bit as we go through the afternoon, but the flash flooding is going to continue. Also, the small streams and creeks are running fast and furious and in flood, and that's going to take some time to go down. Still some showers and thunderstorms around this afternoon and tonight. The weather will rapidly improve Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Michael's Flooring Outlet has been serving St. Louisans in the bi-state region, just like you, for over 30 years. And they have been able to have that kind of success because A, they're really good at treating their customers right. That matters the most, doesn't it? And B, they have the quality product that you've been looking for. You will gain peace of mind that your flooring and carpet installation is going to be done right the first time when you hire experts from Michael's Flooring Outlet. And you can learn more about them online right now. Their locations, you can request an estimate, you can see the different types of products that they carry. It's all online at igotfloored.com. They give all of their clients attentive personal service, and they've even been known to bring toys for kids to play with at the house while they're doing installations. They understand it. They get it. They know that they're coming into your home, that your family is there. They are from a family-owned and operated business. They understand all of it, and they aim to please with each and every client that they work with. If you're looking for flooring in St. Louis in the bi-state region, check out Michael's Flooring Outlet. Find them online at igotfloored.com.
Who can Missouri Republicans trust to crack down on illegal immigration and communist China? Not Jay Ashcroft.
Jay Ashcroft championed a bill that allowed China to buy Missouri farmland and other property near our military bases. Ashcroft took thousands of dollars of travel from liberal groups, including one that pushed amnesty for illegal immigrants. It gets worse. Jay Ashcroft turned his back on America's veterans and opposed providing vets with any benefits at all, including discounts on hunting licenses and prescription drugs. Jay Ashcroft allowed China to buy our farmland. He vacationed with amnesty-loving liberals, and Ashcroft stiffed America's veterans. There's a better choice. As Missouri's governor, Mike Kehoe will stand with President Trump to crack down on China, secure our border, and honor our veterans. Mike Kehoe is the conservative we can trust.
Cops for Kehoe is responsible for the content of this advertising, paid for by Cops for Kehoe, and is not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Help if you want to sell your home as is. Help doesn't matter the condition it's in. Help if you want to simple sell with no agency fees. Claiming groups got you covered, no contingency. House a mess, roof damage, bad taxes, that's all okay. Make sure you remember to call Claiming Real Estate.
Let us help you. ClaimingGroup.com. KLAMEN Group.com.
Don't let a cold, sinus infection, or allergies ruin your day. Breathe easier, sleep better, and feel healthier with Navage. Visit Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, or a store near you.
Every evening this week, the Republican National Convention is here. From 8 to 10, we're bringing you the convention plus live coverage. The Republican National Convention, every evening this week on St. Louis's home for conservative talk.
That is exactly what I needed to hear.
Thank God someone here knows what you're talking about.
That's us, that's right. Gotta love this American ride.
All right, you need to take the time and get the full picture.
Come on, turn the radio on. It's Saturday and I won't be long.
Don't get me wrong, I love the ladies. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom. It is Anchor Man, not Anchor Lady.
What do you want from me? I'm not America's sweetheart.
Goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
I'm not America's sweetheart.
This is the Annie Fry Show.
Brad Young sitting in for Annie Fry today. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. We've got 1 hour left, unless I can convince Mark to let us go in a couple extra hours, because I haven't even scratched the surface of what I wanted to talk about here this afternoon. But one of the things I wanted to go to is the live chat. We've got a lot of great chat topics going on the YouTube live chat. We also have a poll there right now, which is, what do you think of J.D. Vance as Trump's pick for VP? Right now, I believe approximately 48% are okay with J.D. Vance. 35% love it. 17% say someone else. So we would like you to participate in that poll under the YouTube live chat. Just go into YouTube, type in Annie Fry, and you can find it right now. But one of the topics, in fact, there's two topics on there that we're going to discuss this hour. But the first one, speaking of J.D. Vance, is what does President Trump's nomination of J.D. Vance, or his choice of J.D. Vance as his running mate, what does that say about the campaign? Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Well, when I first heard the pick yesterday, my initial reaction was, I wish it was somebody else. He was not one of my front runners for sure. The more that I've listened to people talk about him, the more, and here's the case that I've heard made that makes me say, oh, okay, well, I'm okay with that, is that Trump feels pretty good about this election, and that he's not picking somebody, which is where I was coming from, is how do you pick somebody who's going to broaden the tent or add votes or whatever, add the coalition, whatever. He's not doing that. He's picking somebody to govern. And when I heard somebody say that, it was some random pundit somewhere, probably somebody associated with the RNC last night, I thought, you know what? That's not a bad idea, because once he gets in there, yes, we all want him to win. We feel pretty good about where things are at right now. He must feel pretty good about it. Once they get in there, you want them to do a lot of work. And if he's got somebody who is fully on the same page as him, especially like you were talking about with the administrative state, the deep Washington state that's just permanently there.
Sure.
then I think you can get a lot more done with somebody like J.D. Vance rather than somebody who's moderate. It also, and I don't think this was part of the pick, but people have speculated afterwards, if somebody's taking shots at Trump, which they literally are, it's a deterrent from somebody trying to take him out and get somebody more moderate or more, average into office if you're just getting another version of Trump in there.
Well,
So
true.
all of that made me go, you know what? Not my first pick, but I guess I'm okay with it.
Well, it's interesting, Ryan, that you mentioned that. I haven't watched any of the coverage of the convention, zero, because I've got a law firm to run and I just don't have time. But this morning, as I was drinking coffee and just thinking this morning, I had the exact same thought that so often presidential candidates pick a VP because they want to appeal to a constituency. So if you would have followed that theory, that logic, then you could say, well, if I go with Tim Scott, that's going to help increase the voter turnout for me from the African-American community. Or if I go with Marco Rubio, it might appeal more to Hispanic voters, like in Nevada. Okay, in Nevada, there's an enormous number of Hispanic voters, and that could literally make the difference in Nevada if you had a Hispanic on the ticket and could appeal to that community. But by choosing J.D. Vance, I mean, he is from Ohio, so one can make the argument that might help him in Ohio, but Ohio was already...
It's moving in the right direction.
It's already moving in the right direction, literally and figuratively, so I don't think that really had anything to do with it. But it comes from a position of strength where you say, I don't need to pander to any specific demographic group in the voting community because I feel strongly enough that I'm going to win in November. So I would rather pick someone who is capable of leading rather than picking someone who panders to a specific segment of the community.
I love that, partially because of hey, we're in such a good spot. I feel like I can do it. That's great. But even if they weren't, thank you for not pandering. I get that that's part of winning elections, that you have to appeal to a broad group of people. I think Trump's already doing that. I think he's just sticking to the same message of what he would do for the economy, what he would do in foreign policy, what is he going to do for the border. That he's not picking somebody based on demographic checks, which is exactly what Joe Biden did. I mean, he said he was going to do that. That is what he said he was going to do. And now look at the situation that they're in. No, they're like, should we even try Kamala? Because they know that she's a disaster just the same as Joe Biden. She's capable of putting together sentences where he's not, but they are in such a terrible spot because they've let diversity, equity, inclusion run things instead of just sound policy.
Exactly.
Instead of good judgment, they've made judgments based on the facade of a person instead of the integrity or the inside of a person.
Oh, you are so right on that, Ryan, because the pickle that the Democrats are in, and it's truly a pickle, is if you look at President Biden, there's no question, not only can the guy not serve 4 more years, I'm not sure he can serve 4 more weeks. I mean, he is that gone in terms of being able to run for office, control the country. I mean, what, would you want your surgeon to say, listen, I can only work 6 hours a day? No, if you need a surgeon at 11 o'clock at night, you don't want your surgeon saying, I need my 8 hours of sleep. I'm sorry, I can't come in. You need them now. When that phone rings at 2 a.m., what is he going to say? I'm sorry, you've reached. Hi, this is Joe Biden. You've reached my voicemail. I don't work till 8 a.m. Call me back at 8. You don't want that, right? But they can't remove him from the ticket because if you put in a Gavin Newsom, then you have the diversity, equity, and inclusion optics of saying we're replacing a black woman with a white man. And we can't do that because our job as a Democrat Party is to pander to groups. That's why we have to have a transgender surgeon general. We have to have a certain number of homosexual cabinet members. I mean, it's all about having those numbers, those quotas, to pander to groups. So they know that Kamala's a disaster, but they can't replace her because of the optics. So they're stuck with, do we go with Biden or do we have him leave and go with Kamala, which is even a worse choice than President Biden? That's the pickle they're in.
Yeah, and so when I heard that he was considering, his short list was supposed to be Doug Burgum, J.D. Vance, and Marco Rubio, I thought all 3 of those guys seem like pretty good guys. I don't know that much about Burgum other than what I've heard in the last 5 months. but he seems to be a very intelligent businessman, very conservative guy. So from what I've heard about all three of them, I like where they stand. I also like that he was willing to just pick who he thought was best for his administration, not just for the presidency. I've said this already. I'm just reiterating that until I actually sat and thought about these things, on the surface, all I was thinking of is how do you win the election? Because that's all we're focused on right now. But in 2027, we're going to be going, well, why did you pick that guy if he's bad, you know? So it's a good move to pick somebody who's very loyalist. Here's another random thing that I heard Kash Patel on a national radio station yesterday talking, and he was doing an interview, and he was talking about how much backstabbing there was in the first Trump administration. And he was naming names.
Wow.
He was saying, look, there are people that Trump could not trust because they always had the threat that they would wear a wire into a meeting with him and that they would just go to the media with it. And he called out names. He called out Bill Barr. He said all these people, and he actually said that about Pence. Now, I don't know if he said about the wire thing, but he said Pence was always one of those guys that you were like, I don't know whether I trust you or not. And so you get on Donald Trump for being so like, oh, you got to be loyal. You know, people get on him about the loyalty thing like he's a mob member. No, he was constantly betrayed. Mm-hmm. As a president, he did not pick a great team because I don't think that he was ready to be president that time. I think he was surprised as everybody was. And so he had to scramble to put that team together as a business person now running a government, an entire country. It was new. And he was so far outside the system that it just wasn't in place for him. And so they put people in place for him via the system who didn't like him. And so they were backbiting him and turning on him at every corner. And so it's okay to me if he's going into this administration much wiser, much more sound, picking people who are not going to do that.
Exactly. Well, there's another angle to J.D. Vance that I really like here. And I don't think this necessarily was a factor to pander to a group. It's just the reality of who he is. The Trump theme is strength. You know, put it in one word, it's strength. And that's demonstrated by Joe Biden's lack of strength because, you know, Jill had to literally help him step down one step after that debate. He could not make one step without Jill Biden holding his hand. And then you've got that contrasted with Trump being shot in the head and gets up and raises his fist and says, fight, fight, fight. So then you have the contrasting vision imagery of strength versus feebleness. But then you look at J.D. Vance, and he's what, like 39?
Yeah.
And I think the interesting part is at 39, he's like half the age of President Trump. And with Kamala Harris at 59, she's also half the age of President Biden. Oh, okay, that was supposed to be a joke. But the point is that it re-emphasizes that position, that imagery, that statement of strength and vitality and ability by picking someone who's 39 to be on the ticket when you're literally running against someone who's could be 5 minutes away from using a walker.
You know, the only constituency that I could see him adding, because they keep saying, well, he probably play well in the Rust Belt. He's got a book called Hillbilly Elegy and all this stuff. He's got the Everyman and all that stuff. Whatever. I don't really see that.
No.
I think we're just past that time where people go, oh, he's kind of like me. I think I'll vote for. Like you're voting based on whether you can afford a house at this point. You know, like that stuff's in the past.
But the reality is, do Republicans need any help in West Virginia? You know, I don't think so.
I don't know, but they're talking about, well, he's from Ohio, so he could appeal well in Michigan, Pennsylvania. I don't even care about that stuff. I don't think it's true. The only constituency I could see him adding, because he's had to answer for this and will continue to for the next couple months, he's had to answer for some of the things he said about Trump in the past.
But he's got a great answer.
He does have a good answer, and that's where I think he might actually add people, and I don't think that was the plan. I just think that he is speaking for a contingency of people who in the past looked at Donald Trump and said, that guy is racist and xenophobic and whatever ist you want to add to him, and have since come, in 8 years, have come around to being like, you know what, maybe all that was just kind of hyped up. Maybe there wasn't as much truth to that, and that J.D. Vance might be that kind of representative to say, yeah, I was with you back then. I'm not anymore. This guy's proven that he can do the job, and he's not that stuff that they made up about him.
And he's got his answer. I've seen him give that answer several times, and it's excellent. But let's get to the bottom line, Ryan. Bottom line, you like J.D. Vance because he has a beard, right? Am I right?
I can't deny that.
I mean, besides, he is the only person on the ticket that has a beard other than Kamala Harris.
Oh, please explain.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm assuming she uses a lot of tweezers. I'm just guessing.
I don't know. I can't confirm or deny that fact either. Right. But my main reason for liking J.D. Vance is that it looks like he wears eyeliner. I can't confirm that.
Yeah.
It's just, he might be one of those guys who just looks like he does. You know, every now and then a guy gets blessed with looking like he's beautiful. I don't know that J.D. Vance is that, but he does look like he's got that kind of dark,
he does,
eyeliner.
But he looks a lot better with a beard, because I saw pictures of him this morning
I did
before
too.
he had the beard. And I'm like, dude, growing the beard was the best thing you ever
good
did.
job.
Good job on that one, pal.
Good choice.
Hey, we got to take a break. And one of the other topics that's been raised on the chat line, it was actually a topic that I was already prepared to talk about, which is the rhetoric. We're hearing a lot about the rhetoric in this campaign. And we're also hearing in the mainstream media about how the rhetoric could have impacted the assassination attempt that took place over the weekend. But I've got some thoughts and ideas about how we contrast that rhetoric with the rhetoric that's alleged to have occurred on January 6th, and how you can actually use those ideas to destroy the arguments of the left when it comes to blaming Donald Trump for January 6th. Brad Young sitting in for Annie Fry today, and we'll have more next on 97.1 FM Talk.
This is the Annie Fry Show. Follow Annie on Twitter @AnnieFryShow.
Air Comfort Service obviously can help you replace your furnace, can help you replace your AC system. That's obvious, right? Air Comfort Service, heating and cooling and insulation. Here's something else that they do. They have a duct sealing that they can do for the ductwork in your home. I've had this done in my home by Air Comfort Service. Call them at 314-513-0091, 314-513-0091. and ask them about an AeroSeal duct sealing. You can help make sure that the air you are paying to cool goes where it's supposed to go, not in between the walls, leaking out of tiny holes or gaps in your ductwork. This makes an amazing difference in the efficiency of how your air conditioner is going to work, especially on those super hot days where it feels like it's running all of the time. They also do blown-in attic insulation that can help make your home not only more comfortable, but also more energy efficient. 9 out of 10 homes don't have proper attic insulation. 314-513-0091. Online right now at aircomfortservice.com.
Summer is here, which means pool days, beach trips, and yeah, you guessed it, traffic jams. Oh yeah, and heat waves. Don't let summer catch you by surprise. Get the local news you need, no matter what you're up to, with the free Odyssey app. And never miss a beat with alerts on breaking stories sent directly to your phone. Listen today on the free Odyssey app. That's AUDACY.
What's your favorite 4-letter word? Chances are you've said it more than a few times dealing with this crazy world we live in. But at Compass Retirement Solutions, our 4-letter word of choice is hope. Hope for a better tomorrow. And hope that your retirement plans don't take a back seat. You've watched inflation soar, and maybe your retirement future feels a little uncertain right now. But all hope is not lost. Find out exactly how much risk you're still taking with your investments. Find out how you may be able to save big on taxes. And find out how having a written retirement plan just might give you the hope you've been looking for. Call today to set up a meeting. 314-373-1598. That's 314-373-1598. Compass Retirement Solutions. 314-373-1598. Firm offers insurance services but does not provide tax advice. Investments and services offered through Compass Retirement Group, a registered investment advisory firm in Missouri and Illinois. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
I'm embarrassed to say this. I've been using deodorant on my armpits for 30 years, and anytime I noticed odor anywhere else, I thought I needed another shower, I wasn't clean, or I felt like there was something wrong with me. And then my gynecologist told me about Lumi. It's a whole body deodorant for pits, feet, and privates that controls odor anywhere and everywhere on your body. Since Lumi, I never have to worry about body odor ever again, anywhere on my body. And that reassurance is worth every penny.
For a limited time, new and returning customers can go to LUMEdeodorant.com and save up to 30% on products like the Lumi Starter Pack, Acidified Body Wash, or new Lumi Plus Sweat Control. Plus, for a limited time, get free shipping when you use the Black Friday and July code listed on site. That's LUMEdeodorant.com to save up to 30% today when you use the discount code listed on site. That's LUMEdeodorant.com. LUMEdeodorant.com. See site for details. That's LUMEdeodorant.com.
Conservatives need real America First warriors to take the fight to the swamp. But Bob Onder attacked President Trump, proudly voted against him, and opposed Trump on China. Because Bob Onder is just another career politician we can't trust. Conservatives for American Excellence, Inc., paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. ConservativesForAmericanExcellence.com.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
On-time news. On your time. Download the Odyssey app and dip in whenever you want. And stay on top of what's happening. 97.1 FM Talk on the Odyssey app. This is the Annie Fry Show. Find the podcast, on-demand audio, and more at 971talk.com/Annie.
I'll tell you what's a sweet emotion, and that is passion for political ideas and passion for thought. And if you're listening right now to the Annie Fry Show, you've got that. And I know it from people who talk to me, who tell me, hey, Brad, I heard you on Annie Fry, and we talk about ideas. I'm seeing it right now on the chat line. Thank you so much for participating in the literal marketplace of ideas.
God, that was beautiful. My
and
goodness.
Wow, you got
that was beautiful.
Flag the tape on that.
That
Flag
was
the tape.
amazing.
That's tomorrow's promo.
Flag the tape.
Yeah.
So actually, I'll be back Friday, so you can use it for the plug for Friday.
Okay.
But no, what I want to talk about now is this idea, and again, a marketplace of ideas about the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. And what we're hearing literally from both sides now is that the rhetoric has to come down and that the assassination attempt was related to the rhetoric of the campaign. But what we're not hearing, though, well, before I jump into that, before I give you the Twilight Zone-like twist, are you hearing, Ryan, the same thing, that it's the rhetoric that caused President Trump to come under this assassination attempt?
Yeah, I don't know that the media is directly saying one led to the other, but they're definitely running parallel. They're saying, hey, the temperature's just so high that of course something like this was bound to happen. Things like that. So I don't know that they're saying Crooks or whatever his name is did this because so-and-so said this. But I do see them trying to tie them together.
Mm-hmm. But think about all of the comparisons that we've heard for the last 8 years of Trump being compared to Hitler, of Trump being a threat to democracy. How many of our current politicians have said that Trump is a threat to democracy? Now, here's the idea that I want to throw out there for a discussion. We're told by the left that on January 6th, it was Donald Trump's words on January 6th that led to the January 6th riot. I don't call it an insurrection because it wasn't, but it was a riot. And yet, those same left, in fact, I had a conversation with a liberal friend of mine yesterday, and I brought up this idea, and initially he rejected it, and then when I kept pushing it, he finally said, I have no response, because that means I win. But here's the idea. If January 6th was caused by Trump's rhetoric, then it must be true. If the rhetoric caused the riot, then it must also be true that the rhetoric from the left comparing Trump to Hitler, because who wouldn't kill Hitler? If you could go back in time to 1939, 1935, 1933, who wouldn't shoot Hitler to stop World War II? Anyone would do that. So if you compare him to Hitler, if you say he's a threat to democracy, then the only way to eliminate that threat is to shoot him. But the left rejects the fact that their rhetoric caused the assassination attempt, while at the same time saying that Trump's rhetoric caused January 6th. My point is, both of those are either true or both of those are untrue, but you can't pick and choose and say that, well, I believe that Trump caused the January 6th insurrection. You can't say that and logically then say calling Trump Hitler for the last 8 years had nothing whatsoever to do with someone trying to shoot him in the head over the weekend. Am I right or am I wrong?
Okay, let me play the role of your liberal friend.
Okay.
And see if I can poke holes in that. Because my initial reaction is, yeah. But okay, are you saying that the rhetoric attached to Donald Trump, well, let me say that Trump's rhetoric throughout the entire 4 years is what caused January 6th, or just that day?
Well, the left really pins it on the January 6th. That's why he's been indicted for what he said on the Capitol grounds on January 6th. He has been literally indicted for the words that he said as a cause of the so-called insurrection. I agree it was a riot. There's no way it was an insurrection. But regardless of how you want to label it, he's been indicted for literally what he said that day.
Okay, so you are saying that it is the things he was saying on January 6th that caused January 6th.
Well, that's what the indictment says.
That's what they're saying.
That's what the left says.
So,
that's what Jack Smith is asserting in court.
Then if I were trying to poke holes in your argument, I would say, well, that was all heat of the moment things. These are ongoing things that are just sort of like vague. You can't really pin any particular person down. It's all media. It's all kind of like this big cloud of conversation that definitely has painted him as dictator, fascist, Hitler, all these words that we constantly hear. I mean, we're still hearing them now, not just before the assassination attempt. We saw them happening in Milwaukee yesterday from parade and marchers who were marching against Donald Trump saying the same thing now.
Exactly.
So obviously that's out there. But it's a little harder to me to pin down on any one person. It seems like a lot of people, whereas they're saying this is singularly Trump and singularly that day.
Right. But it's a logical fallacy to assume that two things that happen at the same time or near the same time are causally related. For example, if I put in a new mailbox at my house and no elephants run through and charge through my property, am I then to conclude that installing a new mailbox at your house will prevent elephants from coming through your house? No, they're unrelated, but they just are they're causally connected temporally, but not causally. So when you look at what Trump said on January 6th, the harshest word he said was, you have to fight for your country. That's the harshest thing he said. But you look at the rhetoric of the left for the last 8 years, it's been literally the only way our country survives is if you kill Donald Trump. Far more harsh, comparing him to Hitler, comparing him to a threat to democracy. If there's a threat to democracy, what do? You have to remove the threat, right? But the left ignores, denies, and rejects the idea that they have any culpability in causing the assassination attempt, while at the same time asserting that Trump's mild language of literally one word, saying you have to fight for this country, is solely and exclusively responsible for January 6th. And to me, I don't see that you can have it both ways.
Yeah, and I would point out that he also talked about peacefully, patriotically.
Yes.
I mean, that you take any context from that speech, and you have a very, very strong argument. It's not even really an argument. It's just the truth. Like, it's if you just read the transcript. But anyway, you open talking about Twilight Zone. There actually are Twilight Zone episodes, and I don't know about the original, but I'm this big of a Twilight Zone fan, that the 2002 version, there's been 4 versions of Twilight Zone.
Okay.
There's been the original.
I remember the one in the 90s.
With Rod Serling. There was the 80s version.
80s, I remember that one.
With a Grateful Dead opening, which was really weird and kind of creepy. And then there was a 2002 version that was on UPN right after I wasn't working, or right before I was working there. And it was only on for one season.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
And the person, or the band that did the opening, because the famous song is what I was like, who's going to do the song? That was Korn did that song. And then they just did a version recently with Jordan Peele. So the version in 2002 actually had an episode with Katherine Heigl where she is sent back in time by some whatever means, like, oh, we've developed time travel. We're going to send you, Katherine Heigl, back in time to kill Hitler as a baby. And that was the plot of the whole episode. And will she, won't she? Because it's just a baby. You know, it's a very innocent baby, but will she kill it? So the argument that Trump is Hitler, because you do hear that all the time. He's a dictator. He's a fascist. He's just like Hitler. He's the second coming of Hitler. If Hitler were around today, who would argue that we would be better off having gotten rid of him? I mean, we would all say, yes, the world would be better if Hitler had not been on this earth. So getting rid of Hitler is almost a moot point. Like you almost everybody agrees with that.
Sure.
So now the Democrats and the message carriers in the party, more than anything, are in a weird position of having said for 8 years, Trump is Hitler. He is a threat to everything you hold dear. And yet they have to say, but don't kill him. They're in a logical loop where if he really was Hitler, they'd have to support the idea that actually killing him would be good.
Yes.
They would have to say that.
They would have to say that, which validates my argument that if you're associating Trump with Hitler, you're essentially validating that the man should be killed.
Yes.
And someone actually acted upon that messaging to try to take out a person whom he was told was the equal to Hitler. And the left says, no, that had nothing to do with it. But Trump using the word fight on January 6th caused the so-called insurrection. It's a preposterous, logical incongruity that cannot be resolved if you're intellectually honest.
And now you're seeing all of these same people back off of that argument that, oh, he's a dictator, he's fascist, he's Hitler, and say, no, we ought to turn the temperature down. Well, I agree with that sentiment. That's good. I'm glad that they're doing that.
Me too.
But by doing that, they're acknowledging, actually, we were lying.
Yes.
We didn't actually believe he was Hitler or that much of a threat.
Right, because if you really believed, let's use the logical consistency here. If you are a member of the left or a member of the left-wing media, which I know are synonymous, and you take the position that Trump is Hitler, as Joe Scarborough has said publicly, as has many celebrities and people on the left, if you believe that, then today you can't, the only answer you have today is, I'm sorry the assassination didn't work. I'm sorry the shooter failed. If you really believe Trump is Hitler, then today you're sorry that the shooter missed. And I got a text from an acquaintance of mine, not a friend. I got a text from an acquaintance of mine. You remember the old show Get Smart, right? Yeah. The famous line from Get Smart was, missed it by that much. Yeah. And he sent me that meme. And I called him. I called him out on it. I said, this is horrible, but at least you're being intellectually honest. That you still wanted Trump to be killed before, you want him to be killed now. But everyone now that knows it's publicly unpopular to say, oh, I'm sorry that the guy didn't get assassinated, who knows that that's publicly frowned upon to say that, they're being intellectually dishonest if they actually compared him to Hitler, because if he was Hitler, then he should have been killed.
And it lasted a day. I mean, the let's turn the temperature down lasted Sunday.
Yeah.
and that was it. And it's just right back to where it was from the people saying we should turn it down. I mean, Joe Biden, again, don't know what kind of faculties he's got, so maybe he doesn't remember. And I'm not saying that to be mean, but really, maybe he doesn't even really remember saying it. He was reading a script or reading a teleprompter or something. But he then did an interview with, I think, Lester Holt.
Yeah, I saw the interview this morning.
Yesterday. And he was talking about Trump dictator in that thing.
Right.
So you're like, I don't believe anything that you ever say. You're just opportunist. You're just going to say what you want in the moment.
But what's interesting in that interview, and I don't know that this was the takeaway that most people got, but this was the takeaway that I got from the Lester Holt interview, at least from the part we played. where Lester Holt had the cojones to say, President Biden, just 2 weeks ago, you put in a letter to donors that we should be putting a bullseye on Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And he asked him about it. And then Biden's response was, well, I never said crosshairs. And I'm like, wait a minute. Nobody asked you about crosshairs. They asked you about a bullseye, which you said. And then Lester Holt, in a very mild-mannered way, did it much better than I would have. I would have called him on it forcefully, but Lester Holt said, sir, I said bullseye, which you said, I'm reading from your letter. It says bullseye. And then he goes on to try to explain away what he meant. But the point is that rhetoric was put a bullseye on Trump. And what's a bullseye? That's something that's a target that's used for guns. So his rhetoric is far more inflammatory, far more violence-inducing than Donald Trump on January 6th saying you have to fight for your country, which was the most explosive thing that Donald Trump said on January 6th. You have to fight for your country. You're right. We do have to fight for our country. We have to fight for democracy. But to say that led to January 6th is preposterous, especially if you think that you've been comparing Trump to Hitler for 8 years, and you say my rhetoric has nothing whatsoever to do with a man who literally tried to assassinate the former president.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort of poke holes in the argument, but first of all, you're an attorney.
And I'm good at what I do.
And second, you're good at what you do. And so it's tough to do, but it is in this place where you just get so tired. I mean, to put a bow on it, you get so tired of people. The hypocrisy is crazy. I mean, half of what we talk about seems like is the hypocrisy of people in leadership roles, whether they be in the White House or just in the country. And everybody's sick of it because the hypocrisy's always been there with politicians. It's never been so bold. It's never been, and I always use the example of Chuck Schumer talking about the border in 1 year versus the next.
Oh, I know. Aren't those amazing?
I mean, those things are amazing. And you put them side by side. And it's not just him. I mean, there's 100 people you could do this to.
I've got a letter from Dick Durbin, and I save it to my phone. And the letter is from the 1980s. And Dick Durbin, who is one of the most liberal senators in the Senate from Illinois, Dick Durbin said that I'm totally against abortion. Abortion is wrong. And anytime abortion occurs, it's a killing of a human life. And he's in a letter with his letterhead on it. And now they're completely distancing themselves from that. And they do that so many times, whether it's on the border, it's on abortion, or other things. It's truly incredible. Hey, I want to wrap up this segment here. When we come back, we often hear the left say, when they criticize the right, they say, you know what, the Republicans always accuse the Democrats of not loving this country, and that's not true. We love this country. So some polling data came out that really doesn't support that. The polling data doesn't show the Democrats love this country. We're going to break this down next on the Annie Fry Show, 97.1 FM Talk.
This is the Annie Fry Show. Find the podcast, on-demand audio, and more at 971talk.com/Annie.
You're listening to the Annie Fry Show live from the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation Studio. If you're not sure who to call for air conditioning services, contact the team at Air Comfort Service. With 55 years of experience and thousands of 5-star reviews, you can trust them with the comfort of your home. Visit aircomfortservice.com.
Have you been thinking about window replacements for your home? If you have, you need to check out Window World to get the windows that are simply the best for less. You're going to be glad that you made this phone call. Trust me on this. Make sure you tell them Annie sent you. 314-993-1800. 314-993-1800. Window World uses double-strength glass in their replacement windows. These are windows you can rely on because they also come with a lifetime warranty that covers glass breakage, covers all parts, and even covers labor, which is exceptional on Window World's part that they throw that in there. They're ranked number one in number of windows sold in the country by Qualified Remodeler magazine because people trust Window World windows to be quality, that you don't have to sacrifice that quality or overpay for it. The windows that are simply the best for less, you check them out at windowworld.com or give them a call and tell them Annie sent you. 314-993-1800.
1-800-1800-windowworld.com.
As part of summer's greatest hits, it's the first ever Macy's All-Star Week. Join us for an incredible lineup of live events in-store every day, like fashion shows, beauty demos, and more fun for the family. Now through Tuesday, July 23rd. Plus, shop our best summer deals, like 50% off swim, sandals, and more. And exclusives just for Star Rewards members. You don't want to miss this. Go to Macys.com/events to see what's at your local store. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
This is it. Shop the Lowe's Closeout event to get up to 70% off select major appliances for your home. Plus, get up to 60% off select patio furniture and accessories for your outdoor spaces. So hurry into your local store today because these deals are too good to last. Shop them now before they're gone because Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 8/7 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
I can see clearly now thanks to the doctors at Ophthalmology Associates. Doctors Greg Birdie, Ranjan Malhotra, Robert Brusati, Andy Royer, and introducing Samuel Berry. You can too. Call 314-966-5000 or check out youridoc.com. That's youridoc.com.
Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. With Ramp, you get full visibility into your company's spending and control who spends what with each vendor. Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts instantly to save your team valuable time. Ramp automates data entry and routine tasks with automated approvals, expense categorization and bill payments, time-consuming tasks. Which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. Get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/free. Ramp.com/free. RAMP.com/free.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members of FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
Biden's open border policies are crushing Missouri. Yet, the Jeff City Swamp is boosting a program subsidizing health care for illegals, the same program behind Planned Parenthood's discount abortion scheme. Thankfully, Iraq War veteran Andrew Bailey is on guard. Like Trump, he's a fighter. As your Attorney General, Andrew Bailey won't stop fighting illegal immigrants and Planned Parenthood. Call 314-340-6816 and thank Andrew Bailey. Stand For Us PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. StandForUs.com.
The YouTube live chat poll, sorry about the disclaimer there. What do you think of J.D. Vance as vice presidential pick? We have a few options for you. Do you love it? Are you okay with it? Or would you have preferred somebody else? Let us know and get your vote in before the end of the show. We'll give the results here shortly. 2:47 now. This time check is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
Now I'm out here looking like revenge, feeling like a 10, the best I ever been. And yeah, I know how bad it must hurt to see me like this, but it gets worse. Now you're out here looking like regret. Ain't too proud to
The Annie Fry Show is streaming online. Watch us live on YouTube and subscribe.
Chicken baby, I'm the baddest. Stop playing with a savage. Can't have this, can't have this. And it'd be nice of me to take it easy on ya, but nah. Baby, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Baby, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Being so bad got me feeling so good. Showing you up like I know that I would. Baby, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Baby, I'm sorry. Feeling inspired 'cause the tables have turned. Yeah, I'm on fire and I know that it burns. Baby, find it.
Welcome back to the Annie Fry Show. Brad Young sitting in today for the last segment. My goodness, where has the 3 hours gone? I have no idea. But as we teased before the last break, the Gallup company came out with a poll. It looks like the poll was a week ago. And the poll was asking several questions. Are you extremely proud to be an American? Now, I'm not going to start singing the song, but because I can't sing. But except at church. I mean, I'm always at church. I'm always thankful that the Bible says make a joyful noise because that's what happens when I sing.
You should sing that song in church no matter what they're singing.
Yeah, is it what, a joyful
Sing,
noise?
no, sing Lee Greenwood.
Lee Greenwood, yeah. Oh, yeah, that'd go over well. So, but the point being is that 2 in 5 Americans, 41%, say they are extremely proud to be an American. It's the 5th consecutive year that this reading has been in the range of 38% to 43%. So right now, only 41% of Americans are extremely proud that they are American. Does that shock you? Does it surprise you? Does it validate what you think? How do you react to that?
That's a tough question to ask right now because you could really interpret that. That's the way we do a lot of poll questions, today being an exception because it's just based on the news. But a lot of times you ask these questions and kind of let you interpret them. And that one is one that you go, well, am I proud to be an American based on what the current situation in America is? Or am I proud to be an American because of the ideals of America, which are very different things?
Yes.
So it's tough. I could actually see people from both sides of the aisle really kind of struggling with that question based on how you want to interpret it.
Well, and to me, and this is something I've talked about a lot over on my KMOX show, and that is that when you hear the term Americanism or American supremacy or any of those types of phrases, it doesn't mean that Americans are any better than anyone else. What it means is that because of freedom, that America is better than other countries because of freedom. That's what allows exceptionalism, the idea of American exceptionalism. It exists here because we are free. Do we make mistakes? Of course we do. Are we perfect? There's only one perfect person, and he wasn't an American. But yet, in this instance, I am proud, extremely proud to be an American. And when we make mistakes, we confess them. When we make mistakes and we commit wrongs, we right them. But we're proud because of the freedom that we have. And to say that you're not proud of this country, I can't even fathom someone saying that. Because to say you're not proud of our country means you're not proud of freedom. And that really is what gets to the heart of it. Because if you look at the rhetoric from the left is against freedom. That's why the left doesn't want us to have freedom of speech, that they want a rhetoric to be classified as hate speech. But and I've had so many people call me on my KMOX show and say, well, hate speech is banned by the First Amendment. Well, you've never read a Supreme Court decision then, because every single decision, whether it's a liberal court or a conservative court, says freedom of speech includes freedom of things that we don't approve of. And so that's American exceptionalism. And if you're against it, you're against freedom. And I just don't understand that mindset.
Yeah, and that's how I would interpret that question too. Ultimately, it would almost depend on who was asking me the question. Like if I'm walking around U City and somebody asked me, I'd be like, why are you asking? But, I do the July 4th special every year. We just got past it.
Mm-hmm.
And a part of that is just to play patriotic songs. It's to make a nice evening out of your fireworks display, but it's also to bring up speeches and things. I've added more and more of this every year. Things that we maybe forget. I've got part of the Gettysburg Address in there now.
Sure.
And things that have been part of the American experience that all it takes is one generation to forget. And then you
Yes.
get what we're getting now. But I'm encouraged, Brad, I didn't intend to go here with it, but I'm encouraged by the last 5 years or so. I think we've had a little bit of those things removed in a way that has shaken people up, that especially during COVID, but even in the last 4 years, people have gone, wait a minute, maybe the institutions that I trust aren't so trustworthy.
Hmm.
And I don't want to not trust institutions. I don't want to inherently not trust them, but they have not done anything to deserve that trust recently.
Exactly. Trust has to be earned. It's not given.
And I think we're in a generation right now that can look back to a lot of the things that have happened recently and say, oh, that's what America looks like if you take away freedom of speech. Oh, that's what it looks like if you take away rights that are endowed to us by our Creator. And there's a little bit of a wake up that I think that people can look to these moments in time and say, yeah, I remember that. Let's not do that.
Exactly. And if you look at whether it's the Black Lives Matter movement, which is at its, not even at its core, it was certainly at its core, but not just at its core, but in its rhetoric is Marxist. And you look at the rhetoric of AOC and Bernie Sanders and so many of those on the progressive left, that really want socialism, which socialism means by definition, no freedom. Ask anyone in Russia right now if they think they have the freedom to vote. And they don't. They don't, because that freedom has been taken from them. But even when I look at, and I've heard popular saying when Trump was president, my leftist friend said, Trump is not my president. And this may get some pushback, but when I look at Biden, I never say Biden is not my president, because Biden reminds me that we have the freedom to choose our leaders. Do I like him? No. Do I approve of his policies? No. But the fact that he's in office means we have the freedom to choose. And so he is my president because it's a reminder of freedom and the reminder that we need to replace him. But I think it's interesting that according to the same Gallup poll, only 34% of those who identified as Democrats said that they were actually proud of this country. So when those on the right say, you're not proud to be an American, and the left pushes back, the polling data bears that out.
See, Democrats should be more proud than ever right now because they're, hopefully, you'd think, with having the Senate and the House for 2 years, not now, and the presidency for 4, this would be a moment where you'd say, you know what? I am proud to be American. This is the way things should be going. But they're not.
But they're not. And I think those on the far left will never be proud because we have freedom.
They hate the structure of America.
The left
foundation.
Philosophy says the masses are idiots and that they require us smart leftist progressives to tell you how to speak, to tell you how to think, to tell you how much money you can make, to tell you how much you should be paying in taxes. And that, to me, is anti-freedom. Hey, I want to make sure that we get to Ethan. What are the results of our poll? Should J.D. Vance, do you approve of J.D. Vance being the VP pick?
I'm going to go ahead and click end poll right now. 196 votes for today's poll, which asks, what do you think of J.D. Vance as the vice presidential pick? 48% saying I'm okay with it, 35% saying I love it, and 15% saying I would have preferred someone else. There's your poll for today.
Very good. Hey, I want to thank everyone who participated in the live chat today. I want to thank everyone who participated in the online poll. And thank you for literally being a part of the Annie Fry Show. Speaking of being a part of the show, I think she's out for the rest of the week. I will be back on Friday.
Yep.
I'd be back sooner, but I've got a day job to do. But I will see you on Friday.
Sounds good. And by the way, more RNC coverage tonight all week. So starting at 8 o'clock, we'll be covering the RNC speakers and then some coverage after that, too.
I like the chip I got in my front teeth.
I feel like with a lot of the people who I've partnered with, I'm always talking to you about the good people at that business. And I say that because that really matters to me. When I go purchase anything or use any service, I want it to be with good people. And that is why I'm so happy to partner with STS Armory. You can call them directly at 618-931-GUNS, 618-931-GUNS, but you can visit them directly in their store in Pontoon Beach, Illinois. They're at the corner of Highway 111 and South Drive, and they're online at sts-armory.com. But if you meet Katie and Jesse, the owners at STS Armory, you're quickly going to understand why so many people, whether they got recommended to go there, or they heard me talking about it, or they just Googled, a local gun store, and that's what they found is STS Armory, they keep coming back because you can trust Katie and Jesse. They're going to help guide you. They're going to help you navigate the Second Amendment in the state of Illinois, and they're going to help you with all of the training, the purchases, the services, the accessories that you need. STS-armory.com.
Tony La Russa here. Has your loss of energy and weight gain thrown you a curveball in your relationship? If so, go